buildings that are pretty nice buildings set out. And so one year I decided to stop and Google the names, and there's a lot of little aircraft that make bearings and special machine parts for aircraft and stuff that are kind of spread out all over everything.
Yep.
So will these parts now be made here or milled here, or are you just gonna be the distributor?
We're a distributor, but we'll do some manufacturing, but we gotta get up and running first. There's some stuff we can do. There's some stuff we can do better. So, plan.
Maybe Councilor Allgood is going to be comfortable tonight and hang out in the audience.
Yeah.
Sorry about to get the other view.
If I had it, I think that to let him know. So there is.
Okay. Yeah. Someone from the airport, it's Joe Palmer, he's in charge, he has airplanes out there, but he's also the chairman of roads, highways and airports, transportation committee. So they're calling.
I don't see any.
Hey,
Nope, I think
they
they're good.
promised us a cafe out here, now they're changing their mind and not having a cafe, and so he got with me and I told him that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't lie to him.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay, the time is 6 o'clock, so we'd like to welcome you out to our regularly scheduled city council meeting for this evening, March 19th, 2024. We did have a workshop prior to this meeting in regards to an overview of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Andrea Rasmussen presented that from the U.S. Department of Labor, so we want to thank her again for taking the time and coming and enlightening us and teaching us and being very timely as well. As was duly noted by Councilor Doty, that she was able to get through that and give us a little extra time at the end, so we appreciate that. We will begin this meeting with an invocation offered by Pastor Jim Porter, so if you'd please stand for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow.
Good evening. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, such a beautiful day in our city. We thank you for the good fortune that we have, that you've blessed us with, to be able to live here. And we know that you treasure good governance, and we are so pleased, Father, that we are a city that is run well, run smoothly, and creatively. God, for the things on the agenda tonight, we ask that you would give wisdom and clarity, and just that your will would be done. Again, Father, we thank you for everything that has been done and is being done, both by our city staff, for those that are paid to lead us, and Father, for the thousands of volunteers across this city that make Caldwell our home. We thank you for this, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Porter, for that. We appreciate it, and you always being here and helping us and guiding us in the right direction. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Doty?
Here.
Dyke?
Here.
Register? Here. Wittenberg? Here. Allgood?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Very good. All council members are present and accounted for. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any members of the council regarding an item on the agenda this evening? Okay, very good. That moves us into our special presentation. So we do have a few of these tonight. So first is presentation by a good friend of mine, Principal Bob Gwynn at the Ridgeview High School. And I say that doesn't look like Bob standing up, but behind him it does. So two of my good friends. So Bob Gwynn, and then also the athletic director from Caldwell High School, the athletic director of the year for the state of Idaho. So congratulations on that, by the way. So super excited on that. So the time is yours.
All right. Mayor and city council members, thank you for having us. Bob and I met and discussed coming to a city council meeting and just taking an opportunity to thank you, Mayor Wagner. So I wrote a little letter. Bob's going to say something as well, and we have a couple gifts for you. As a proud member of Caldwell High School community, I wanted to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your unwavering support and dedication to our school. Your tireless efforts have not gone unnoticed. The facilitation and renewal of our cherished rivalry at Simplot Stadium with Valley View High School was amazing. You've consistently demonstrated your commitment to the betterment of Caldwell High School. Moreover, your willingness to actively engage with our student body through assemblies, fundraisers, and various groups has left an indelible mark on our school community. Your presence and encouragement have inspired us to strive for excellence and embody the values of leadership, service, and collaboration. On behalf of the entire Caldwell High School family, I extend my sincerest appreciation for your invaluable contributions. Your support has enriched our educational experience and empowered us to reach new heights of achievement. Thank you once again, Mayor Wagner, for your steadfast dedication and profound impact on our school and community.
Thank you so much. We need to get a picture of him holding that from Ridgeview, holding the Caldwell Cougar. No, that's not allowed.
So our athletic trainer, Holly Jackson, she made this as a gift that you can put up in your office since you're a CHS grad.
Yep.
And then we also had a jacket made for you that you can wear proudly at Caldwell High School events, not at Ridge, or you can wear it at Ridgeview events as well.
I get chastised from even at home when I do that at Ridgeview.
Can I bring these up to you now?
Yeah, or I could come down there. I'll come to you.
I too would just like to take a minute and just say thank you, to yourself and the leadership, Mayor Wagner, that you offer, and to the City Council as well. I'm not a member of the Caldwell community, but I am proud to say that we live in Nampa, and I was recently at a planning and zoning meeting where one of the Nampa patrons made reference to what's taking place in Meridian and what's taking place out here in Caldwell, and just the revitalization and what's taking place. I see that very effort happening with my own kids at school that are proud to want to come out here and want to host prom and try to find venues and stuff to be engaged in the community that you are really actively doing such a phenomenal job with. And so part of our conversation between Mr. Halleck and myself one day was, I just made mention that, the mayor is here and he's present at anything and everything possible, and we'll see him pop in and pop out, not only blessing my kids at school, speaking to government classes, but oftentimes just if he has a minute to stop in and say hi to the ladies up in the front office. And again, it's these touches with people and stuff that leave really such a profound statement. And so I made a couple notes here. Again, Ridgeview High School sits in the Valley View School District, and so we really sit at the very northern end of Nampa. And so our city connection is Nampa, but yet it's through Mayor Wagner's work that my students participate in the Caldwell Youth Leadership Council, and that continued venue and that continued effort, and to watch our kids there bus to come out here to be a part of what is so exciting, and to see that investment happening in our young people, to come and speak at our government classes, and for our kids to have a voice to look and to see what a person that's involved in government and making change looks like, as opposed to what they might see on social media or news outlets or things like that, to have that very, very close connection in that piece. Being at events at all hours, for Mr. Halleck and myself, the school doesn't shut down. If possible, it would run 24/7. And then to see community members involved at drama presentations and cheer and wrestling and, of course, different sports events. So we just greatly appreciate all of that. And so in saying so, we'd like to say thank you from Ridgeview High School for really all of your continued support and your effort in our young people.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. So if I could say a few words, and then I'll come down and get a picture with you. So these two gentlemen are phenomenal in what they do. So it's an honor to be recognized by such great individuals, and it really is my pleasure. One of the passions that I have is our youth, and both know that very well, and inspiring and leading and guiding them. And it's really a lot of that. It's about action. It's easy to say something, but to actually get out there and do it. And so it really is a pleasure for me. I only have boys. I know I told my wife, basketball is my big love and sport. And so I was like, well, if we won't go to girls' basketball games, we're going to go to a lot of boys' basketball games. Well, we go to a lot of girls' basketball games now because we love to go and support the schools that are within our community. on that. And so it's a pleasure for me to do those things. I love it because it allows me to involve my family as well, oftentimes away from them. And so it's just a great opportunity to be there and with the kids and just being able to be with them to see the futures that these kids hold. It's amazing the power that they have. Like I look back when I was, again, at Caldwell High School, nowhere near what these kids are today. It's just phenomenal, and it's because of great leaders like both of you and what you do in your schools and supporting them, encouraging them. So I appreciate this so much. So much of that goes right back to you and what you do in your schools and the way that you lead with dignity and with honor. So thank you so much. But also I want to reflect that back to the two of you and your entire administrations, what you do at your school. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So here's just some things that we've had designed as well. We just made ours just a little bit bigger than Caldwell, so we could, you know. We just want a constant reminder of how much we appreciate you, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you again so much for that. And again, just there's a special connection obviously with both. Caldwell High School is where I attended, went to high school, graduated from, and Ridgeview is where my boys hopefully will graduate from. So I have a sophomore and a freshman attending Ridgeview, and so have obviously those special connections with both of those. So appreciate you coming and being here with us tonight and for doing that. So really, it's a great surprise, and so thank you so much for doing that, for all that you do. So. And I always cheer for the Cougars when I'm at Caldwell, and then for the Ridgeview when I'm out there. So thank you again. Appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks so much. Okay, our next item is special presentation by Chief Michael Stoll of the Canyon County Ambulance District. If you please come forward, and the time is yours.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I appreciate the opportunity this evening just to speak real briefly about why Canyon County Ambulance District is going to be on the May 21st ballot with a override levy. I'll speak just real quick, a bio about myself, and then I'll go over a couple of the pages here in the packet. I'll try to be real quick in case you have any questions afterwards. So a little bit about myself. I'm a third-generation Idahoan, grew up farming in Homedale, started volunteering with Homedale Ambulance in 1994. Made a career change in 2004, became a paramedic, started with Canyon County Paramedics in 2004, worked as a field medic, field supervisor, deputy chief, and I've been the chief for the last 6 years. It's been a great career at Canyon County Paramedics. I've loved serving the Canyon County communities, and they've been really good to me over the last 20 years. So a little bit about the packet. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of it. Page 2, just a little bit about how the ambulance district is funded. We have two main sources of funding. I'm sorry, hopefully you got the packet,
So it's in the supporting document.
Oh, sorry.
Debbie just told me, so it should be in there for you.
And I do have some printed off ones if you need it, but two primary sources of funding. The first main one is fee for service, so this is why you get a bill if you take a trip in an ambulance. So about 65% of our funding comes from fees for service. And if we, on the page, if you do end up pulling it up, there's a pretty big limitation for our fee for service because about 70% of our fees for service fall within the Medicare fee schedule. Medicare, for an example of a bill to Medicare patient about $980, the ambulance district is only allowed to collect $300, about $330. The rest of that, $560, is a mandated write-off. So that's not something the ambulance district can control. We can't take it to collections. We can't go after any of the rest of that. It's a mandated write-off. So the huge increase of call volume does not mean a huge increase in revenue for fees for service. So definitely a limitation for our revenue. The second one is the property taxes. We're about 30% funded by property taxes. For fiscal 2024, that was about $3.5 million. And if we take the max allowable for fiscal 25, take the 3% growth, the new construction, and any foregone, that's only about a $200,000 increase. So with the fee for service, and most of that coming from Medicare, and the property taxes, those are two limitations for the ambulance district. With the massive growth that we've seen here in the valley over the last 5 years, and listen to planning, zoning, and look at all that's projected, we're just unable to build stations and add staff without additional funding, which is why we're taking it to the voters in May to ask for the override levy. If you jump to, trying to think which page it is, what we're proposing in the levy override is to build the station in South Nampa. We do not own the station that the old Mercy Hospital sat on. The hospital owned that. When that was sold to a private developer, that's going to be torn down, and so we're going to be without a station down there. So we need to rebuild that station. We want to build a station here in Caldwell that I'll show you on one of the maps in here, add 12 staff, and add 2 ambulances to the system. So if you, more specific to Caldwell, if you go to page 6, it shows the county and it shows a heat map. So it shows all of our places, all the stations in the county that we have ambulances or a chase unit. So in Wilder, we have a single paramedic unit out there that responds with Wilder Fire. We have an ambulance in Middleton, 2 ambulances here in Caldwell, and 5 in Nampa. So for Caldwell specifically, if you look on the heat map, we're definitely underserving Caldwell. We only have 2 ambulances here. When the Wilder station isn't staffed, both units are the first in going out. When the Middleton truck is out or not staffed, both Caldwell units are first into Middleton. So Middleton is very heavily taxed with the calls and then just not having a station. So if you look on page 9, it's a little bit more zoomed in on where we would like to propose putting a station, which is kind of out there around Indiana and Ustick. Even if we were to build onto Caldwell Fire Station 2 would be a good location as well. We've co-housed over the last 20 years. We haven't built a station in that long because we've really tried to partner with the hospitals, with the fire stations. But at this point right now, we're needing to build a station here in Caldwell and add that staffing. So I'd stand for any questions. I know that was a lot real quick.
I'm going to fire a couple at you, then I think we may have some.
Great.
So it's what kind of a levy again?
So it's a override levy.
Override. So
Yes.
what's the difference, I guess, between like an override levy and a bond?
So, great question, Mr. Mayor. A bond, like what Caldwell Fire did, that's a set amount of money and it's over a set time frame. In 2001, the ambulance district ran a supplemental levy. That was a temporary. We wanted $1.6 million, taxed that over 2 years, built the 2 stations, and then our levy went back to what it was before. We're asking for a permanent override levy. So currently, the ambulance district levies about $10 per 100,000 of net taxable value. We're asking to move that to $30 per 100,000 net taxable value. So that is a permanent property tax increase to that $30 per 100,000.
Okay, very good. Thank
So
you.
that kind of, yeah.
Yep, you enlightened me. Thank you so much. Councilor Stoddy, did you have a question?
Some of you know I'm on the Concerned Citizens of Canyon County Committee, and Chief Mike made a great presentation to us last week. But you might explain to him the problem with we discussed the Charles project there on Lake Avenue and Karcher and how that fits in with your plans.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Static, that's a good point. So the Caldwell Fire, when they got their bond, they're proposing to build that station out there at Lake and Karcher. That is a spot that we would definitely put an ambulance. The first spot we'd like to is kind of over by where Caldwell Station 2 is, but in the future, the station will be big enough for us to actually put an ambulance out there. So it's another opportunity for us to co-house and save us from spending quite as much money on a station and to put money towards a station with Caldwell Fire to save them money too. It's just worked out really good to co-house. So, yep, it's a good location for us in the future, definitely. And when you look at the heat map, it would really serve us well for the growth that's going out there.
Very good. Any other questions, any council members? And with the levy, is it a simple majority? It's not a super majority, is it?
No, it's a super majority because it's a permanent override. When we did the supplemental in '01, because that was a supplemental, it just needed the simple. But this one is like the fire bond. It is a super majority. It's a big lift.
Yeah, yes, it is. We know all too well.
Yes, you do.
The city on that.
Yes,
so.
you do. But we're looking for more of a permanent solution instead of just that supplemental.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we really appreciate you taking the time and highlighting the need.
Yep.
Same with when we did the bond for the fire stations. It's not because we want to, it's because we need to.
The need is there.
And it's really providing those emergency services for the people of Caldwell, people of Canyon County. And then maybe the last question is, who votes in this regard? Is it everybody in the county? Is it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is a good point, because Canyon County Ambulance District is a taxing district with the borders of the county. It is everyone from north of Parma to Melba, so it's the entire county.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, excellent. Thank you
Yep.
so much. Really
All right.
appreciate you being here,
Thank
and
you.
also thank you for your service
Yeah.
and what you do.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next special presentation actually is an annual update report from the Caldwell Housing Authority. So if you could please come forward, if you could state your name for everyone, and then the time is yours for your presentation.
My name is Rosario Soto. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to address you this evening. Farmville Village, previously known as the Caldwell Labor Camp, celebrates its 84th birthday here in April. In June of 2024, the Caldwell Housing Authority, created by the Caldwell City Council in 1946, celebrates its 78th birthday. Throughout the rich history of the Housing Authority, was and is proud to offer agricultural and workforce housing for individuals and families who contribute to the Caldwell economy. The Housing Authority is celebrating 5 years of independence from federal oversight. The Housing Authority uses no federal, state, county, local tax dollars to support its operations. Tenants of the Caldwell Housing Authority earned an estimated $10 million last year and contributed approximately $100 million to local GDP. We were the first housing authority in the state of Idaho, and most likely in the nation, to provide large-scale H2A housing to the area of ag producers, further supporting Caldwell's Farm to Fork motto. Caldwell Housing Authority completed a master plan for future development and is in the process of adding 220 RV units, RV parking this year to its housing inventory as the first of many planned developments. CHA also remodeled the third floor of the TVCC building to assist with the relocation of City Hall. We did large access and accessibility improvements to Wolf Field and park improvements at Lions Park. Replaced damaged sidewalks at the request of the city. We also provide ready-to-eat food to Blessing Box here at the Caldwell Police Department, the Caldwell Library Food Pantry, and the College of Idaho's Food Pantry. CHA sponsors many community activities, including the annual STEM Egg Drop Contest, Caldwell Youth Fishing Derby, and other celebratory and cultural events. We are collaborating with several community organizations to relocate the John C. Rice House. It sits currently at the College Street, and we're relocating it to the corner of Kimball and Chicago in downtown, developing the first of its kind affordable housing for public safety personnel. The move is expected to happen in the latter part of June. Our staff remodeled the house in the College District and sold it to a lucky member in the community for $169,014.16. Finally, and most important, CHA provides 248 units of housing and necessary community resources to its tenants. We are both proud of where we came from and excited about where we're going. We are looking to the future and the possibilities the growth of the city presents to the Caldwell Housing Authority. Thank you for your support.
Awesome, thank you so much. Any questions from council? Okay, so I do just want to say thank you for all that you do. I remember going out to Farmway Village when I was in high school many, many years ago, and it was a lot different place back then. And so it's just great to see all the improvements that have been happening out there and the continued vision to the future. I know a few years back you've separated from the federal government and just kind of doing everything out there so wonderfully. So really appreciate you. And I know Councilor Dittenber is a big part of that as well out there on that. So I'm guessing, made you come tonight to do this presentation. So maybe he owes you lunch later in the week. But it's a great thing out there what you do. And
it holds a really special place in my heart. I was born there, and I lived there until about 94, so I lived there most of my life. So.
Yeah, so it's awesome. Yeah. I know we have several members of our Mayor's Youth Advisory Council have lived there at one time. I know our vice chair from last year, Julissa, who is on a full ride scholarship at Columbia, by the way, right now. She lived out at Farmway Village at one time with her family. So it's just amazing to see some of the great people that have come out of that area. So yeah, Councilor Williams, do you have a comment?
My stepmom lived out there.
Oh, there we go, and another one to add to the list. So, okay, well, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay, our last presentation on special presentations is our annual update from Advocates Against Family Violence. Kim, the time is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Kim Dugan, Advocates Against Family Violence, and I am proud to say that we have been serving the Caldwell community. We're in our 21st year right now of serving domestic violence victims and victims of sexual assault. That's not all our program is limited to. There's many forms of abuse, and we encompass all of those and serve every single victim who comes to us for services. We are a 100% voluntary service program, so that what that means is those who come to us, they don't have to report who they are, what they're about, or why they're seeking their services, but they're there to get those services. Last year, 16,713 services went through our programs, and we have our four main programs, which is our shelter. That's our main one, and that's what we were built on, was a shelter program, because at the time when we were formed, there was absolutely no shelter and no services for victims of abuse in the community, and so our nonprofit was formed to just basically be an advocate for them, and then a year later we were able to open the shelter. Then we were able to start our housing program, and I am proud to say that I was the one who got to help initiate that, and we now have 110 units of affordable housing on our campus, just down the hill from the shelter, and then we have 14 units of affordable housing in the community as well. Those are qualified at 50% AMI and below, and if you qualify, then you're there as long as you pay your rent. If you don't pay your rent, then you suffer the consequence of that. And then we have our daycare program too, and it sits on our campus, and it's a wonderful, heartwarming program. When we did it, it started out that it was open to the community, and I was finally happy to say that we might have a program that we don't have any victims of abuse, and then as soon as we opened it up, what I came to learn was that 100% of those little ones who were in that program were either first or secondary victims of some sort of abuse. If that program never makes any money, I don't care, because those babies are being served. And then we started our teen outreach program about 14 years ago. And when we did that, we took a look at our mission statement, and we looked at the needs in the community, and we said, those that we're serving are already victimized. How are we going to change this cycle of violence? We're going to have to start educating, and in order to do that, we're going to have to start educating at a much younger age. We looked at the daycare. They were already victimized. So where do we start that education base? And we started out in the high schools. We have 14 programs deep teaching healthy relationship education in the schools in the area. Last year, 4,700 students received healthy relationship education, and right now, out of that program, we are serving 15 who have come forward and reported sexual assault. So it's done what it needs to do, but I know that there's many more to serve. 4,732 youth did go through our program, and then 60 children right now are being served through our daycare. What we came to learn through the Idaho Criminal Justice Needs Assessment, and this is throughout the state, but 73% of the surveyed respondents said that there are not enough services serving victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault. And we know that that's true. We're the only full-service program in all of Canyon County. We have a lot of land to cover and a lot of victims to serve. But when we looked at that, we said, all right, how are we going to be able to continue to do these services? And so we've had to take a long, hard look with the funding cuts that we've received, and being the only full-service program in all of Canyon County. We're not just 8 to 5. We're 24/7, 365. That's 8,600 hours a year of serving, and we have a staff of 35 to do all of that. So it takes its toll, and with the funding cuts that we've received recently through the federal funding that we received, it's making it harder and harder to continue to make those services available. Last year, we had a gal come to us. They moved here just from Washington. She enrolled her baby in daycare, and as soon as she enrolled her baby in daycare, 2 weeks later, there was a domestic incident in their home, and we were able to get her and her baby to safety. We were able to put safe locks on the home and on the windows, get them a doorbell, and get them the protection order that they needed, and then help her get through the system. And now there's a permanent protection order placed, and so she is in safe care and still receiving services and seeking counseling through our program. And like all of our programs are free. They don't pay for anything. Most of them who come to us for services, they can't afford to pay for it anyways, and we know that, and so we're there to help serve them. But we have been working with the Caldwell community, like I said, we're now in our 24th year of serving Canyon County, and very proud to be able to say that we were part of the very beginning of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We still have staff who serve on the council, and that's been a long, fun journey. And I was able to be part of that inception of the Youth Advisory Council, and so very glad that we're there to help serve the youth in our community. We still serve on the Caldwell Youth Forum. We help host the annual Fan Run, and we are so very community engaged, and we love this community, and we want to be able to continue serving the needs of the community. What that's going to take is true partnership and a true continued partnership with the city. Last year, the funding provided for service to 386 individuals. Of that cost our organization $63,690, and through the funding received, it really actually only cost us $53,000, but that funding still was there. That $10,000 was there to help us. This year, knowing where we're headed and knowing the extreme needs in the community and what we're already facing with funding cuts, we would like to see the support increase to $15,000, and that will allow us to cover the cost of 90 of the individuals that we receive in the community, and not just the 63 that we served last year. And so, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the support that we receive, and for believing in our mission and believing in those that we serve, and the continued support that we have from you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do. Any questions from council? Yes, Councilor Stoddard?
I just wanted to make one comment. We have so many developers come in front of us and say they have affordable housing, when in fact it isn't affordable housing. Kim and her organization, they have true affordable housing, and I think when we look at some of the things that we're going to spend money on, pathways for bicycles and everything else, and have these folks in organizations and the Veterans Organization needing some money too to make sure that we serve our citizens, I really think we should take a second look at some of the money that we are spending on other items other than this needed one. So anyway, thank you, Kim, for all that you do.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much. You do so much for our community.
Thank you.
So really
we appreciate your help and support.
And thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
So, okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our special presentations. Okay, so we do not have anybody signed up for audience participation this evening, so that moves us into our consent calendar. So do we have a motion in regards to that?
Mr. Mayor.
Sir Doty.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as printed.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of the consent calendar. Any discussion on that motion? With that, voting is open.
Race between us, Chuck.
There they go. They're all warmed up now, ready to go. So all votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that does pass unanimously, and the consent calendar is approved. Okay, that moves us into old business. Ray Lynn, so she's making her way to the front. So first item is public hearing pursuant to Idaho State Code 20-1002 to consider acceptance of the budget amendment for FY 2023-2024. Ray Lynn, the time is yours.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. This evening I'm here to present a budget amendment for several funds. Essentially what this is, should have been bad on me, it should have been submitted in December, really. This is for purchase orders that were rolled over from fiscal year 23 to 24 that you guys approved, contracts. They hire contracts that, we are obligated, and this is a new process that I implemented. We used to just absorb them into the budget, and then at the year end, we would have the budget amendment that would, calculate the increase. Now I'm actually doing a budget amendment for them. So there's 64 POs. The total amount is 15 million that you saw. Of those right now, so you can see that we were actually spending those monies. I did a calculation today of that. Over 6 million of that has already been spent and out the door. So it is being spent and already, it's a timing issue. So vehicles that have not arrived, construction projects that have been approved, and it's just phasing out those contracts and making sure that we're paying them. So stand for any questions that you guys have.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council? Okay, thanks so much. We do have one person signed up to testify on this matter. Jean, if you please come forward, and if you could state your name and address for the record, and Jean to set up in opposition to the request. So you'll have 3 minutes for your testimony after you give your name and address.
Okay, it's Jean Kreitbring at 15855 Orchard Avenue. And I am concerned about the figures noted in the legal notice for today's public hearing. For fiscal year 2022, the actual expenditures were $83,279,740. For fiscal year 2023, the actual expenditures were $111,372,961. The adopted budget for fiscal year 2024 had expenditures at $185,702,704. The amended fiscal year 2024 expenditures has it at $201,430,312. Now, I understand there has been inflation. However, in 2 years, the expenditures have increased $118,150,572. From 2022 to the amended 2024 expenditures, that's an increase of over double last year's expenses. The percentage increase from 2022 to 2024 is a whopping 142%. The percentage increase from 2023 to 2024 is 80.9%. The adopted budget fiscal year 2024 revenue was $134,822,137.72. The budget was balanced using reserve funds. Now you want an additional $15,727,608 to get to the amended expenditures. How is this being funded? The actual non-property tax revenues for 2022 was $91,006,035, and the property tax revenue was $20,976,365, totaling $111,982,400. That meant an excess of $28,702,660. The adopted budget non-property tax revenue for 2024 is $117,052,106, and the adopted property tax revenue is $28,781,898, totaling $143,834,003. That means the expenditures exceed the revenue by $57,596,308. Extra interesting is that, as noted previously, the expenditures increased by 142% from 2022 to 2024, but The revenue has only increased 28.4%. Again, how are you going to fund the added expenditures? This is a major concern. The city seems to be spending significantly more than incoming revenue. Are we draining any emergency fund? This too is a scary practice, as we need a backup for an emergency situation. I strongly oppose the amended increase. Some may be needed in your eyes, but the poor spending practices prior to this point make it a risky adventure. Please know, the citizens of Caldwell are not going to be happy with excessive tax increases given the evidence of massive spending. Nor will they be happy if you put Caldwell in dire financial straits with no reserve funds for emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? I imagine Ray Lynn's gonna come up afterwards and have some others. Any questions though for Jean before she leaves us?
Oh, Mr.
Podium.
Mayor, I
Yeah.
think Ray Lynn's gonna come up and explain it's not 15 million on top of this year's budget, but last year's, and any of the other questions that you got out of that you would like to
Okay.
advise us on before.
Any questions? Yeah.
Well,
any
and
questions?
I heard her say it's rolling over, but still, there's an increase in spending that far exceeds the increase in revenue
Yeah.
by a lot.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that, so I'm forward, so I know that Ray Lynn will be able to come up on that. So thank you so much
Okay.
for the time. So Ray Lynn, could you come up and give some explanations of that, a little more detail on those items?
For sure. So part of this is, since this spending was budgeted in '23, we did receive revenues for that. However, it wasn't spent in '23, and so those revenues weren't spent, and so they went into fund balance. And so that fund balance that we estimated at the end of the year in '24 increased. So Rochelle will present that next, when she presents the audit statement, the financial statement, she'll show that there's an increase in fund balance. And so with that, it doesn't show on this, but if you ever want to see where we stand quarterly, you can look at the treasurer reports, which are published on our city website. It shows our cash, shows where we are, revenue and expenditures. So it shows we're not overspending and where our reserve balances are at as well. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Doty?
You want to explain a little bit on, the Association of Cities and the reserves that we have for an emergency as well, in case those aren't clear?
So we have, we put aside 30% of our budgeted expenditures for 2024, which is not even budgeted for, that's not even included in these, revenue and expenditure calculations. So it's even set aside on top of the cash that we have, so.
Correct, we're not using it for anything else unless an emergency arises,
Yeah,
correct?
so we have an excess of reserve. And I will say, right now, what's happening is that there's been a lot of departments, there's been a lot of vacancy savings, and then this has been where we are not using our budgets to fully extend, because of timing issues. So where we order in one year and we don't get it to a next year, and so we're not ordering things again because we've already expended that budget. So, for example, police cars, where we order them in one year, they take a whole year to get here. So instead of ordering them again because they need them again, we're just waiting a whole nother year. Now with the PO process, we can order them in the year we budgeted them, and then we can order them the next year we budgeted again, so that we actually budget twice, so, and get what we need. So.
Councilor Register, did you have a question?
Well, kind of, but I'm not really sure how to phrase it. I guess I was wondering, previously, the previous administration was criticized for not spending enough, right? For kind of taking more money and putting it aside and not giving it back to the community. So the fact that this administration has come forward and maybe is giving more back to the community as far as spending, does that show a significant increase from where, like, it started, meaning they weren't spending enough, so now it looks like we're overspending?
A lot of what we're spending, so especially with this, it looks like a large amount, but very little of this is actually general fund. The majority of this, when you're looking at this budget amendment, and 1.7 million of this is general fund. And I can tell you exactly what that is. That's the Nancolis building. So that's what that is.
So I guess to just answer some of the questions, that she had, we are balanced.
We are balanced. So we are balanced because when we say balance, revenue and expenditure don't necessarily have to match when we balance. Because a lot of times what we're doing, it's like a double accounting system because we have in ongoing transfers, and so it double accounts. So that 185, remember if you call in the budget hearing, I said about 14 million of that was doubled up because we are budgeting for the expenditure, but we're also budgeting for the transfer. And so it looks like we're double spending when really it's one actually 14 million once.
Okay.
But
So we're balanced, we have money in our reserve account.
That is correct.
At the correct amount for the Association
the
of Cities.
30%, yeah.
Okay, so we have the emergency. And then, are we putting the city in any danger in any way, or of raising any kind of taxes or anything like that based on what
No.
you know? In fact, we gave money back, right? Our property taxes went down
Went down.
this
Yeah,
year, so,
yes.
okay. That was it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yes, Counselor Allgood.
So, Raylene?
Yeah.
The increase is significant. I understand that when you look
Yeah.
at those numbers, it's shocking.
It is very large, yes.
Can you give me a percentage, how much of these dollars are one-time purchases, like fire trucks, or how much of this is a one-time purchase?
I'm looking over like all of the different items. I would say all of this is one time. None of this is ongoing. So the difference is, so what I see here, these are construction contracts that are like for Ustick Road. So they're not ongoing projects. They're one-time construction projects they're the class and compensation study. They're the Nancolis Center. They're fiber repair. They're the pool design, a flatbed trailer. So like they're all one-time things that they're just timing issues of getting them done. And I'd be happy to publish this list and put it online to show everybody.
So in this budget that we're discussing here, are there ARPA dollars in this budget?
ARPA dollars are in there and they're significant. The ARPA dollars are there's one for 430,000, one for 220,000, and one for over $1 million. So.
Thank you.
Counselor Dittenberg.
Raylene, I think I know how this works, but I just need some clarification from you. We haven't done the 2023 audit yet, have we not?
That is coming April 2nd, I believe, to you guys. The audit meeting is on Thursday.
Okay, and so I suspect that the city operates on an accrual basis accounting, so that this $15 million will be reflected in the 2023 audit as an unpaid expense.
Yes. It'll show some of this as part of that, yes. So.
Any other questions? Counselor Stoddard?
Mr. Mayor, Raylene, you might explain to the audience what ARPA funds are.
Oh, ARPA is the state and local fiscal recovery fund that the city received almost $12.5 million from the government for COVID funds. It's one-time money that we have to have it contracted by 2024 and spent by December 2026.
Good. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that explanation in that regards. Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Counselor Doty, second from Counselor Stoddard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay, so that moves us into, get back to my agenda here. So I think that just rolls us right into the action item for the bill and ordinance on that. So, and we do appreciate, Gene, thank you so much for coming in, and we do appreciate that testimony, and it's always good to have eyes on that and seeing those things, and hopefully there was some explanation there in that regards, and always available to meet as well to discuss those differences and the reason for those increases. So that moves us into the searching for a sponsor of bill number 27, ordinance number 3589.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I just want to make a comment, though. I work very closely with Raylan, as many of the council up here do. I'm very confident in her abilities. I'm sure what she says is absolutely correct. There's usually an explanation also when we have a number wrong in our head as well. So I'm very confident in your abilities, and I believe you when you say the budget is good and we're moving forward with that. So I'll sponsor bill number 27, ordinance 3589, amending ordinance number 3525 for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30th, 2024, with a request to move for its passage.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have Councilor Doty is sponsoring of bill number 27, ordinance number 3589, sponsor second from Councilor Stoddard. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then the voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast. The voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. That moves us into new business. Action item number 1. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing. This is for case number ANN 23-10, PUD 23-7, and SUB 23-13. This is for an annexation, planned unit development, and subdivision request. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Katie for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Before you today is Tranquil Acres, ANN 2310, PUD 237, and SUB 2329. This was heard before the P&Z Commission on February 14th and was recommended for denial. The project location is 3.5 acre parcel located north of Missoula Way between Montana Avenue and College Avenue. The site has frontage along Montana Avenue and College Avenue. The applications before you tonight are for an annexation of 3.5 acres of land into Caldwell city limits with the initial zoning of R2, medium density residential, and a planned unit development with a preliminary plat for the parcel outlined in red, consisting of 30 single-family attached lots and 1 single-family detached lot. The project site is currently surrounded by single-family residential and commercial to the south, as well as several plex-style and multi-family housing types in this area. Here are some snippets that show the variety of housing surrounding this property. And these are some street view photos of the several medium high-density developments that are highlighted in the previous slide. Tonight's request consists of the applicant's proposal for annexation with a medium-density residential zoning designation, which will bring this site into conformance with the comprehensive plan map. The purpose of the medium-density residential zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that provide medium-density residential development areas at a density consistent with the comprehensive plan. Such zones are primarily located in older neighborhoods and adjacent to shopping, recreational, or cultural facilities. Such zones should be placed in areas that have full range of urban services available or projected to be established. The proposed development is surrounded by low-density residential and county. Staff finds that the medium-density residential is compatible zoning district next to low-density residential and could be a complementary zone based on similar densities and the surrounding medium-density comp plan designations. Also, many of the uses around the site are not outright permitted in the low-density residential zone in our current code. As of today, the surrounding land uses would be more compatible with the R2 medium-density residential zone. The comp plan designation and development is medium-density residential. The surrounding designations are low and medium density. And the proposed densities are in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed land use of the 3.5 acre planned unit development with single family attached and detached homes is a permitted land use within the zoning district. This development is proposing 31 single family homes, 30 of those being attached, 1 detached, and 5 common lots. There will be a public road dividing the parcel in half, connecting access to Montana Avenue and College Avenue. The proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with city codes and policies, and staff finds the proposed development is in compliance with the parking and landscaping requirements, all bulk standards for lot size, setbacks, frontage, and height of buildings, all size, land use, design, and amenities required. The proposed development will have the adequate site access, utilities, and services to serve the site, and the proposed development is in compliance with all zoning and subdivision ordinances with the approval of the PUD deviations. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had concerns were Caldwell School District said the development shall take into account safe biking and walking paths along Montana and College. And then there were 6 public comments submitted. Written comment from Doug Hanman. His letter is in opposition because of traffic and car accidents in the area. There was a written comment submitted by Joy Davis. This letter was in opposition of the development due to crime increase, noise during construction, and traffic. A written comment was received by Mary Schaefer. This letter is in opposition of the development due to traffic. A written comment was also received from Rain Talbot. Hopefully I'm saying all these names right. I apologize if not. But this letter is in opposition of the development due to continuation and change of dates to Valentine's Day, traffic and potential disturbances with new neighbors. And then written comment was submitted by Robert Steinbach in opposition due to infrastructure and traffic. And a written comment was also submitted by Lucas Wilson in opposition due to traffic, property tax increases, and mass development. Code Section 100307 states that standards are allowed to be modified to better suit the site and project. The applicant is proposing the following allowed deviations: a 0-foot internal setbacks for single-family attached lots, lot frontage of 30 to 34 foot rather than 45 foot, lot sizes from 2,458 square feet to 3,200 square feet rather than the 6,000 square feet, height to 34 feet along single-family home property lines, 1 parking space per every 4 lot with frontage less than 45 foot wide. And then infill amenity deviation requests. Due to the site being an infill, the code allows amenity deviation as a reward to provide infill projects. This is in Code Section 100307, and the applicant is requesting to deviate from the berm requirement, the 8-foot pathway. There's no neighboring developments that have recently had pathways that would connect, and then 3 amenities rather than the 4. The site-specific conditions are as follows. The street landscape buffers shall be 15 on Montana Avenue and 10 foot on College Avenue. The development shall have 3 optional required amenities that are listed in the Planned Unit Development Code Section 100307-4B. The applicant shall provide at least 10% usable open space as shown in the approved landscape plan, and the applicant shall provide an updated landscape plan to show the 7-foot attached sidewalk or 5-foot detached sidewalk along Montana Avenue prior to City Council. City recommends that if the council grants approval of the request, that such request is subject to conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. And I stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. Any questions from council? Councilor Doty?
I see that planning and zoning didn't recommend that this be passed. You want to touch on that just a little bit, unless there's someone from planning and zoning here, just for maybe our audience members?
Mayor and council, this was recommended for denial due to the commissioners believing that the land use was not compatible with the surrounding residential uses.
Okay. Councilor Register, did you have a question?
That was my question.
Oh, okay. Very good. Yes, Councilor Williams.
Katie, good evening. This is another infill project, which we've been seeing more of, and frankly, we hear this all the time. We are trying to avoid the urban sprawl issue, but then we bump into this not in my backyard idea. Do you recall, so the question was asked and answered about the planning and zoning, but do you recall what the vote was by chance?
Mayor and council, I do know that I believe it was 3 of the 5 members were in attendance, and it was 2-1, if
So
I'm
there were
recalling
only
it
3
correctly.
people in attendance at
That
that
is
meeting.
correct.
Because it is almost surprising to me that we're, against this. The idea of that being low density immediately around it on Missoula, you showed us pictures of stuff that doesn't even look low density. And I know because I drive by this, every day, that sector back there, including behind it, there's a lot of duplexes, there's a lot of multifamily housing around there. I guess I'm just a little puzzled. How are we classifying this? Is it low density simply because these lots that were established and built in the late 60s and early 70s are larger lots, and so that's what makes it low density?
Mayor and Councilor, I don't want to give any false information, but based on what I would understand is that based on when all of this was developed, it probably didn't have the same land use schedule, probably didn't have the same comp plan designations. So you kind of see some of those multifamily and a lot of duplexes or multiplex buildings, which just have become no longer permitted outright in the R1 zone. So you see that, as we kind of touched on, that all of the surrounding zone is R1, but that you're seeing all of these multifamily and plex buildings, which, again, as of today, wouldn't have been permitted, besides the duplexes.
Because for 3 acres, R2 seems to make a lot of sense to me. So with that, nothing more for now.
Yeah, and I would just add a little bit, and I appreciate Katie being conservative on that response. I'll be a little more forthcoming. I would say 100% that it was different rules when these were built, because I'm looking at the aerial R1 from pretty much every lot I see abutting it, none of that would be an allowed use today in the R1 zone. So it would have been much different rules and regulations at that time. Today's standards, that would be an R2 or an R3, would not be an R1. So like I said, I'm looking at the aerial, those 2 lots directly to the left, there's I see basically 5 cars on each side going into those. So that's at least a duplex, probably a triplex. The others have multiple driveways, so everything that I'm seeing would not be allowed by today's standards. Yeah, that's a great aerial right there where you can see. I'll go up here so everybody can see what I'm talking about. So right, like all of these in here, you can see are multiple. These are not single-family homes in here, duplexes, triplexes, things of that nature, which are not allowed in today's standards from R1. So appreciate your conservative, but I will bluntly state that none of that would be allowed by today's standards. So, yes, Councilor Register.
Okay, go ahead. So, did you have a question?
Yeah. Or did you have yeah, go ahead, Councilor Allgood.
The Dixie Drain borders this. Is the city of Caldwell responsible for Dixie Drain, or is that Pioneer, or do you know who's controlling Dixie Drain during that portion?
Mayor and Councilor, I believe that it is Pioneer Irrigation, but let me give you a solid answer really quick.
I'm curious what right-of-ways might exist
The Bureau of
there.
Reclamation.
Oh, okay. Are there any right-of-ways along there that you're aware of?
Mayor and Councilor, not that I'm aware of. Haley, the city engineer, may be able to touch on that a little bit more, but there was nothing outstanding that I noticed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Register.
So I'm just looking for clarification again. So right now it's zoned as a R1, or it's not ours at all?
So Mayor and Councilor, it is actually still in the county, so it's just an annexation, but their initial request for the initial zoning would be the medium density residential.
Okay, so it looks like on the application that they're asking for 30 single family lots. They're not asking for multifamily, right?
Mayor and Councilor, no, they're not. They're asking for a townhome style, so they're attached on one wall. So they're built like duplexes, but they still are for sale and have that property line between them.
But they're not any bigger than just a 2-story house would be if it was a single family lot there. Mayor
and Councilor, 1 second. Okay. I have an image. So if you can faintly see, the lines within the lot lines, those would be the buildings that they would be proposing to construct. So if you can tell, oh, it's scared to blind.
Well, I guess just the question I have is, if, for them to build the town, home style, it would have to be an R2.
Mayor and Councilor, no, actually, this would be permitted within the R1. It's the density, and then also them coming into compliance with the comprehensive plan. If they were to want to, do R1, they would, probably have to go through a whole different process.
I guess my concern is if we change it to an R2, then if they sell it, somebody else can come in and build what?
Mayor and Council Register, let me help you out here, Katie. So the townhomes are single-family dwellings. They're on their own individual lots. So the way they're developing this, they're platting it. So if somebody wants to come in, once this is approved, it's approved for single family. So if somebody wanted to come in and change what the entitlements are, they would have to go through the process again.
So if it was zoned, if we changed it to an R2 and they sold it, somebody else could not come in and just put it in a permanent building up?
Katie, does this have a development agreement with it as well? Yes. So it'll have a development agreement with it, so no, they would not be able to do something different than what's approved tonight. They would have to come in for a development agreement modification. And then if they were doing anything different with the lot lines or what's an approved use on that, they'd have to go back through the public hearing process.
And, okay. So can they do what they want to do and keep it in R1 or make it an R1?
Mayor and Council Register, they can't, and the reason why is because the lots are smaller. So when you take the overall gross acreage of the development and divide the number of units that they're putting in there, they're over the density of what our code currently allows for an R1. So they have to go in R2 to do that. Not uncommon with infill property when they're really trying to get it to pencil out, because infill is hard to develop with all the infrastructure requirements. So you'll typically see them go with smaller lots to get the density so that it's more efficient and it monetarily pencils out for them.
We just want to make sure that if it's changed to an R2 and it gets sold, that somebody's not going to come in and just put up something without having to come back for an approval or in front of council or something, so that it's not some bait and switch move and then we're telling people it's going to be a nice development and then it turns around and it's not.
Absolutely. Let me ask Katie a question. Katie, in the development agreement, does it specifically state for single family? Okay. So as long as we're putting in the development agreement that it is for single family, detached and attached as shown on this concept elevation, if they wanted to change it, they would have to come back before city council for approval.
And I think too, just for clarification, that it's not being requested to be changed to R2, it's annexed, so it's not zoned, and the comp plan shows it as R2, medium density residential.
I understand that, but I'm just saying if we chose to annex it, because I know, I mean, I can hear the public testimony coming, so I'm trying to get some of the questions answered before, it goes wild, but if we, annex it and we have to make it an R2 for this plan to happen, I just don't want to say that looks great and then turn around, have it sold, and then somebody comes in and says, well, it's an R2, we can, do X, Y, and Z without being held accountable or to the same even design, or you see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you can feel confident that with the development agreement, they cannot go against what's in the development agreement. Any amendments to that where it changes the land use type or the layout, or even if you approve certain concept elevations, they would have to come back before city council through a public hearing process to get that approved, which means people would be able to have testimony on those changes in that development agreement.
So even the design?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can put that into your development agreement as well, yes.
Okay, then my other question for staff, for city engineer is, they're putting a light at Montana and Ustick, and when is that happening?
Yes, thank you. So the light will be going in at Montana and Ustick. Right now it is currently designed for, and we are ready to begin acquiring materials to start that construction. So the construction of that intersection should be this year. I don't have the exact timing, just as we're, working towards acquiring the materials, then we can button that up.
Do you think the light will be up by the end of the year or into next year?
I suspect it'll be completed this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Counselor, all good?
Yeah, Katie, on Montana Avenue in this section is really underdeveloped. It's kind of a poor piece of road. What will be the developer's responsibility for improvements along that section?
Mayor and Councilor, I believe again that Haley may be able to address this a little bit more, but to my knowledge, they'll be putting in sidewalks. That is a condition that's in there. And I don't know if they'll be responsible for building any more of the roads or anything, but Haley may be able to help you out.
Specifically widening right there because it is so narrow and no sidewalks, yeah.
Yeah, right now we do not have in our conditions that the applicant would be required to widen Montana. So that would be a project that we the engineering department would need to look into to widen this road.
Would the applicant be required to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
Yes, they would be required to do their frontage improvements, which would include curb, gutter, sidewalk. We have also asked the applicant that if the city is able to acquire the right-of-way for the adjacent properties, that they would also put in the curb, gutter, sidewalk of those adjacent properties, that would be required, that the city would be able to acquire that right-of-way in order for them to do so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Katie, did this project require a traffic study? I know one of the concerns of taxpayer was traffic.
Mayor and Councilor, no, it did not require a traffic investigation.
Just because of the number of units in that. And
Correct.
then the other thing, I thought I saw Lieutenant Wright back there. Is this a high crime area, Lieutenant? I didn't hear what he said.
He indicated that he's not sure, he'd have to review.
Oh, okay.
that
All
area.
right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Katie? Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have 5 people signed up in favor, only one indicating to testify. So those in favor to not testify is Harland Baker, Asima, I believe is the name. If I got that wrong, I apologize. Tom Bevan and Susie Bevan indicated they're in favor but not to testify. Is that correct? Okay, we'll say that it is, since I didn't hear any abstentions. The one person signed up to testify in favor is Jesse Christensen. So Jesse, if you could come forward, and you will have up to 10 minutes for your testimony, and then stand for questions after that. So if you could give your name and address for the record.
Yes. Could I get my presentation? He's working on it. Very good. Jesse Christensen, 5700 Suite 160, Nampa, Idaho, HECO Engineers. I am the representative for the owner, Harlan Baker. Thank you, Katie. You did a wonderful job. Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. It was tough getting here tonight. We worked very closely with Katie all the way through this project to get to where we are. I know I heard a comment earlier about the change of date. We needed to go through the PUD, so that pushed us back. We had a problem with the new regulations and the sign company, so we lost a month there having to renotice the property. It was not something that we were happy to do, but it just happened. So anyway, I'm so happy to be here right now. This is the Tranquil Acres subdivision, 31 lots total, 30 of them are duplexes. Katie and you guys stole most of my thunder in my presentation tonight, asking questions already. So the common area makes up 10.26% of the subdivision. We've added a playground in our open space. We've added a pickleball court in our open space. We've planned to pre-wire the homes to make it easier for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations. We do plan to have several units that are easily retrofittable to ADA accessible, doors wider, stuff like that in the house. We have a 5-foot walking path from College around through the park and out to our main street. There was just no place to put that 8-foot walking path through here. I know I've included it in other subdivisions I've done here, but we have curb, gutter, and sidewalk on both sides of the street. Katie and I have talked about the detached sidewalk on Montana to make life easier when you guys have to widen Montana. This was, and she covered it pretty well too. You know, we were looking at the multifamily in the area with the density that we have out there. You know, those subdivisions, the Montana Manor subdivision is the big subdivision to the south of us, platted in 1970, with the exception of the 5 closest lots to us. Those were platted in 1980 under another subdivision. There's 2 single-family and then 3 multifamily lots in there. Their density is just as high as ours, about 9 units per acre. We come around to the other ones, they get a little more dense when you look at them. You know, the average square footage per unit is pretty close to ours in those multifamily areas. So I think we're doing a pretty good job of matching what's around it. We were denied because they felt it was incompatible with the surrounding area. I went actually back and I watched my presentation, because sometimes I get up here, start talking, and forget what I said. So I watched that, and then I watched the presentation after us, and it was about the comp plan. And the actual Commissioner Larson brought up a point after that one, indicating he'd like to see the densities on the comp plan, and then he referenced back to ours, saying that if he had known the density for the area around us, he might have actually changed his vote. So, I mean, I think it fits in the area. It looks lovely there. We have projected our townhome units, all 2-car garages with 2 cars worth of parking in the driveway. One of the comments we had from Commissioner Boutros was parking along the street. I think as the driveways are put in, I think we end up with 28 feet or so of parking between the units for additional parking on the on-street too. He talked about not being concerned about delivery trucks coming in and blocking driveways. I mean, that happens everywhere. All of the delivery trucks in my neighborhood block the driveways and park in the middle of the street. So it's just one of those hassles we have to deal with. I know we talked about traffic a lot. In fact, I got a phone call early on from the owner that sold this lot to Mr. Baker, that he was concerned about traffic on Montana, but that was kind of in the time when both Indiana and the Florida were closed and all of the traffic was getting pushed out onto Montana. It is great to hear that the stoplight is coming this year. They may beat us, making things happier for everybody around it. So we have the units, they all have large garages. We have provided a landscape plan. We'll have to update it. We wanted to make sure that we were sticking with the pickleball court and the playground area, and we'll make sure to get an updated landscape plan to these guys to review. And I stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Stoddard.
Will this be done in phases, or are you gonna do it all at once?
It will be all at once.
Okay, and will your amenities be in before you get your project completed?
The pickleball court, yes, and yeah, the amenities.
And the other stuff? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because we've had problems in the past where they promise the amenities and sometimes they don't get built, so.
I had a roundtable meeting with the city a long time ago for another project, and they brought up electric vehicle charging stations that now they actually require they be connected to the grid, because some people may have been trying to get away from that, just putting in a station without connecting to the grid. I don't know. So, yes,
Okay.
everything will be put in.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
Are
Register.
these to be sold or are they rentals?
They're to be sold? Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see several elevations depicted here. Some of them I'm really excited about, one of them not so much.
Okay.
So I don't want it to appear misleading to anybody when even in our packet, there's some really modern and contemporary looking elevations in there.
Right.
Which is it that is intended to be built here? I'm not a fan of the vinyl siding it
Vinyl siding.
deteriorates, it's plastic, it breaks,
Okay.
the wind, the damage, and then you see other things like this, and they're beautiful, and even the one that's contemporary, because it's an infill subdivision, because it is pushing, I'd want us to include in there that there be those requirements for the different, sidings, the amenities that make it look nicer. What's planned already, so I know what to expect if this.
I would like to invite Harlan Baker, the owner, up to, speak on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, so real quick
When
though, let's
I'm
just see if
done.
there's any more
Yeah.
questions for you
Right.
on that. Any other questions, Mr. or Counselor Dittenberg?
So you talked about adaptability or accessible units.
Yeah.
What number are you looking at? You have 30 units. How many are be accessible or adaptable? And then I have another question based on
Can
that.
I have Harlan answer that one as well when he comes up?
Okay, so the next question is ever how many you make accessible and adaptable based
Right.
upon what Mr. Harlan said? Can you make sure that there's zero step entries into those, meaning that there's a ramp into them? Because I applaud everyone's effort to make them accessible,
Yeah,
but when you've had a substantial knee surgery, steps are terrible.
right.
And so I would like to see you put ramps into those.
I'm noting it down, and we'll talk about that for sure.
Okay, and then I'll have some other comments later.
Thank you.
Counselor Allgood, did you have a question?
Thank you. So I've got the description of the lot sizes in front of me here, and, minimum lot frontage is 30 to 34 feet, and setback is 20 feet.
Yes.
And so when I see an elevation like this top brown one, that's not gonna fit on that space. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Great question. 52 feet wide, it's 26 feet, from interior wall to the outside. Our lots are 34 feet wide with like a 5-foot setback between the lots, so it does fit widthwise, and I believe it just does fit lengthwise on our plat for the areas that we've included, the buildable areas. They're not showing up very well on here. They're a red color. So we did check them to make sure that those did fit in the lots.
So I think if I could just add this in, so this right here
Right.
is the property line. So on that other one that you see, that's that property line. So if you took two of those properties, that's why that 52 would fit on there, because there's that
Right.
property line going through the middle of this building.
Yeah, and that's what, so the side yard setback is 6 feet.
6 feet, yes.
So is there 6 feet and then another 6 feet for the next bit, so is there 12 feet apart total?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then the other question I had, and I don't know whether you're the appropriate person to ask, but I'm really, we've been discussing how poorly developed Montana is along that section. When you're going south on Montana, you crest a hill and come down, and potentially you would have people stop making a left turn into this subdivision, which concerns me because there's no room for a left turn lane
Right.
or to go around. Has there been discussion about that situation?
There really hasn't. It wasn't brought up at our roundtable meeting. It hasn't been brought up through this. We didn't do, obviously, a traffic impact study for this. We have two ways out of the subdivision out onto College, which is also not super optimal. It's a more local street than Montana, but no, a turn lane has not been brought up or talked about out there to
Okay.
come into the subdivision. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Jesse at this time? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Harland, if you don't mind, if you could
Thank
come
you.
forward, and if you could state your name and address for the record. Then I think you've heard of some of the questions. We'll let you just jump into those, and then there may be a few others.
Okay, my name is Harlan Baker. Did you say you needed my address or something?
Yes, please.
310 Lariat Lane. Okay, for one, all the projects I do, all the houses I build, I use stucco. That's 90% of the house, if not 100% on the exterior. So we tend to upgrade the exterior. I'm very aware of how siding is, just from a perspective of a homeowner. I don't like repainting my house every 5 years. I don't like doing any of that, so I do them with stucco, acrylic. So the other, ADA. So yeah, the zero entry into the house, I know you brought that up. For those that we are targeting for that, they will be zero entry. They'll be ramped into the house. We'll have minimum
34-inch doors, on the main level, and so that we can accommodate, people with disabilities on that. For pretty much every home I've ever built, it's been built that way. We always build them with the larger doors and the easy entry into the house, so I'm very, aware of those issues. Now, not every house in this neighborhood will be that way, but we'll have a few that'll certainly be that way. And that's all I have on here.
Okay, are there any other questions from council for Harlan? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Unless Councilor Williams, we were discussing, in our packet, we have a number of different elevations of different style homes. Are you the general contractor for all of the building, or is somebody else gonna be building homes? Are we gonna have one style of home or 6 style of homes? Kinda that's what we're going at.
So I'm the general contractor. I'll be in charge of that whole, how that presents. And what we typically do is we'll pick like 3 or 4 different elevations, and we'll go in there and put them in there, so they're not all identical. Some people like them identical, some very symmetrical people like them that way. But I tend to, not be that way, to chagrins of my wife sometimes. But we tend to repeat, every 3 or 4, we have like 3 or 4 different designs that we do in there. But they'll all be of like size, just different looking. Okay. Any other?
And all of them will have 2 garages depicted
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, appreciate that. Okay, so that moves us into, there's nobody signed up in neutral. We do have one person signed up in opposition, Leanne Gordon. If you'll please come forward. And if, nice to meet you too. If you could state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
stand for questions.
Leanne Gordon. I live at 3704 South Illinois Avenue, and we were not aware this was happening. We never received a letter. I walk up these streets every day, and I understand. I wish you'd look at the lot. It's not big enough for this. I'm afraid crime's gonna go up, because we had a shooting last Friday night at 1:30 in the morning on College. So we do have crime, and I'm afraid it's gonna make it worse with getting this housing in there, because there's not enough room. Everybody that lives on that block on College is a senior. They're all old. And I'm in the court, so a lot of kids go cruising through there. And we know that Montana is skinny. I had to go up the side to get over to Walmart. So we know this is not gonna be a fair deal for anybody who lives here. So it's sad that they're trying to do it, and I've talked to this gentleman. He said they can sell these and make them rentals. So that means we can have trash out there, and that's the sad part about this happening. You gotta go see the lot. You gotta see there's not enough room for what they want. So that's all I gotta say, and thank you for listening. Have a good night.
Yes, you bet. Any questions from council? Okay, they did not, so you're good. Thank you so much for coming this evening, we appreciate that. Okay, so Jesse, for rebuttal testimony?
I don't. Jesse Christensen, 5700 East Franklin Lane, Suite 160, Nampa, Idaho, Hiko Engineers. Representing the owner. Yes, I met Leanne. She happened to be on a walk by one day when I was out there doing a neighborhood meeting. She didn't get a notification because she's more than 300 feet from the property line, but we did talk, and we've talked several times since then. She's called me a few times when we put the signs up for these meetings and stuff like that. So it was a good conversation. I understand where she's coming from, but I still think we're trying to put together a good product here to put in this area. And that's about all I have. If you have more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions?
Oh, can I add one more? I apologize.
Yes. Mhm.
The different housing types, there is a requirement with the PUD that it can't all be the same house all the way through there. So we have to provide some different looking houses through there. So that's one of the things I meant to say when I came back up. So anyway, now I'm done. And I can stand for questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions after that? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that is everybody that signed up to testify, so I'd stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know about the, street that, Counselor Allgood's talking about on Montana, where the hill it tops the hill and then you come down, is that,
I apologize, I'm not familiar with
That's
the
okay.
topography out there, so I don't have any information on the hill.
all right, so give me just a second then.
Okay.
Based on your experience, Counselor Allgood, does it appear that that will be a issue to turn left in there, or maybe some engineering, but you can't turn left into there? So we
I
more
do have
discussion
some
on that.
concerns about it. Again, the road is very narrow there, and the speed limit is not excessive, except people travel pretty quickly along there. And there is, in that area, there is no shoulder. You get asphalt and then there's nothing. Yes, there's, exactly. So, if we could, do something to kind of mitigate that, as Counselor Williams says, the hill's not a significant one. It's a drop over, but, there is, again, like you said, there's no escape. When you come over that hill and come down, you're stopping or hitting something.
Yeah, much like in the county where you've gotta watch out for those signs that say there's a site distance restriction there, but we definitely should take that into consideration and maybe work the Montana Street with this project, which it sounds like we're doing partially or some, but then also make sure the time and distance is done out there for the speed for that hill and a caution if necessary out there.
How much extra width do you have to do to put in a left turn lane? What does that require?
Yeah, if we'd want to put in a left turn lane, you're probably going to be looking at another 12 feet to be able to fit a car comfortably in that turn lane. We could also look at, we could work with our traffic commission and look at posting signage on the hill that warns vehicle traffic of obscured view ahead, and potentially that could also help solve the problem.
Yeah, again, the hill is not like super steep, but it is, you don't see where you're at until you're getting closer to it, so, yeah, it's just a concern.
Can they put a bump until they can widen the street?
No,
slow
you
traffic
can't put a
down?
bump on a, no, yeah. Yeah,
Solutions to problems are much better than the cities most of the time.
would hate you if you put a bump there.
Well, it would though, they would have to slow down, right?
Counselor Williams?
I'm gonna run.
Counselor Allgood, are you referring to right at Spruce? Is that what you're referring to as the hill? I wanna be sure I'm understanding you.
I'm thinking just after Larch, before Missoula. Just after Larch, you pass Larch, you go a little ways further, there's a white house on the left side, kind of a farm-style house, and the hill is right there.
I drive that every day, and I'm sorry, I just can't picture it.
Get a Google map up?
Yeah, so I didn't even know you were talking about that, because I don't see that as a hill at all. I know at Spruce, there's just a slight deviation in the road, but I turn left on Spruce every day, and in fact, I drive by this property every day, so.
Look at the speed bump.
And I haven't had any problem turning left, so.
Right, no, it's south of where you're talking about, but do you go south from your house?
Yeah, every morning, I take U-Stick to work.
He's looking. So you don't see a significant concern, but it's something we can.
I don't, but that's why I wanted to clarify
Yeah,
with my fellow counselor where exactly he was referring to a hill, because and forgive me, I don't think hill best describes it. It's hard to.
Right, yeah, and where I'm talking about is
Like in
right
this area, right?
there, yep, right where that big tree is, right there, you have a shady spot, and there's, it's not a steep hill, but, you're coming downhill there, that's where I'm talking about, right there. And then the driveway coming into this would be just below that, that'd be right there, yeah. So, and again, my big concern is just that Montana's in such poor condition along there that, but.
Come. Okay, any other questions this time? Okay, still do need a motion to close public testimony.
I'll move.
And a second. It's a motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, so this is into deliberation. Again, questions for staff are always appropriate. Any discussion among yourself and any motions as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Allgood.
I do have concern that, the developer is gonna parcel this out in parts, sell buildings, sell lots, which means, you know, typically we like to have a singular operator operate rental developments so that we make sure everything is taken care of. And I'm concerned that we could have 15 different owners in there on these condominium type lots. I don't know whether that's an issue for anybody else, but it does concern me, just regulation of the neighborhood. Anyway.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Any other comments or discussion or questions?
I think it's sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I think because they're single-family dwellings, we run that risk in any development. I could buy a home and then rent it out. So I'm concerned that we put too much restriction on something that we wouldn't put on any other development. We're talking about a 3-acre infill property. I suppose part of my concern is, if not this, then what? And right now, we have a lot that is, it's not blight. That would really be an exaggeration to say that. But what are we going to do with these infill properties to continue to build housing that is reasonable and accessible and practical for this community that we live in? And so I'd be concerned that we look at these single-family homes, and if the development agreement requires that they be single-family homes, I think we probably protect ourselves from the developer doing anything with that. But as I said, once Diana sells one of these houses to somebody, they can turn around and rent it out if they want to. So I just would toss that out as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Register.
Also, we determined with planning and zoning that if somebody else comes in, they still have to follow the same plan, or they have to come back. And I appreciate you coming out here. I have this conversation so many times where people are upset with decisions that are made, but they haven't come to the meeting and expressed themselves, so I appreciate that very much. And for me, I'm much more comfortable with R1s than anything else. But what I'm fearful of is that if we don't do this in a controlled way with a good project, that sooner or later something's going to go in there, and then it's going to be, you know, a 3-story apartment building. And we've seen that happen where we denied a project that was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but when they finally came back and something had to go in there, it was worse than what the original plan was. So even though it's not my favorite thing, I'm comfortable with the plan. I'm comfortable with the rules, I guess, we have in place so that it's, you know, going to be taken care of. And I do know that, like Councilor Williams said, that it's a very small lot, so we're not looking at overrunning with, you know, craziness. And it's true that anybody could rent their house. So, in saying that, I am kind of hoping that a nice project in there might help with some of the issues crime-wise and things like that. The nicer the project, the more people are probably going to want to report things that are suspicious and maybe help with some of that. So that's just where I'm coming from. I think it's going to save an apartment building in the future.
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor,
Councilor
just
Stoddard.
one more question, maybe they don't know, but do you have any idea what price range you're looking at?
So,
We usually try to do it as like for first home buyers, entry level. I don't have a price in mind, because it could be 2 years before we finish this, and I'm not sure what it'll look like in 2 years. But if I had to guess today, it'd be in that $350 to $450.
so just for the record, so around $350 to $450 is the estimate at this time. That could change, obviously, but that's kind of what's the indication on that. Okay, any other discussion, questions, or any motions? Councilor Dittenberg.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, I kind of echo Councilor Williams' opinion about infill projects. They're good. We have this, you know, debate all the time, infill versus sprawl. And I can guarantee you that if we don't have infill, we will have sprawl. They're not mutually exclusive. So I think this is a good project. The second thing is I read everything, and so very few things in the 800 pages that we have to read go unnoticed by me. And so I did notice that it was not recommended for approval, and so I went back and watched it. And so here's a shameless plug for transparency. Is every single city meeting, whether or not it's planning and zoning or these meetings, you can go right on YouTube, I think, and watch it. So I had a chance to watch it, and they didn't disagree with the they kind of disagreed with the on-street parking, but I didn't think that was a real issue. But where they were struggling was with the comment that the mayor said was, well, if this is an R1, we really don't think this should be near an R1 when it's not really an R1. It's more like something else. So they really didn't question its legitimacy against the law. They just had an opinion that they just think it didn't go there. And so, and the fact that there were only 3 of the 5 commissioners there, it could have swung the other way. So, I appreciate what P&Z does. I just think that this was one of the things that didn't turn out the right way at P&Z. So, having said that, I think this is a good project.
Okay, any other discussion or any motions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion, and then we can discuss, if we get a second, if there's anything else to discuss. Based on the testimony and evidence and record in this matter, and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I move that ANN 23-10 for annexation of parcel R3573501000 with a zoning designation of medium-density residential with a development agreement and SUB 23-13 and PUD 23-07 for Tranquil Acres subdivision, a residential planned unit development be approved, subject to the conditions as stated by staff, the development agreement, and including a design review for those elevations, that they be, as the developer stated, to be stucco and not vinyl.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion from Councillor Williams with a second from Councillor Doty for approval of the project with the conditions as outlined and detailed within that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes with 5 in favor and 1 in opposition for those at home that maybe cannot see. So, Councillor Olga did vote in opposition to the motion, and the other 5 council members did vote in favor. So that does pass 5-1. Stand for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Motion from Councillor Stoddard and second from Councillor Doty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That closes that. Moves us into action item number 2, and this is a housekeeping item for the annexation request. This is for the bill and ordinance to finalize that annexation. So do we have a sponsor of Bill 16, ordinance number 3500?
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Doty.
I move that we approve bill number 16, ordinance number 3500.
Very good. And that would include move for its passage and approving the summary for publication.
Yes.
Correct? Very good. So we have a motion from Councillor Doty and a second from Councillor Williams. Again, for that's adoption of bill number 16, ordinance number 3500, moving for its passage and approving the summary for publication. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. And real quick, right after this, so this next one, just wanted to talk about it real fast, and we're going to take a 5-minute recess. So this is for a time extension. The applicant or representative is not here, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that there is one person at least signed up, if I'm not mistaken, in opposition. So typically, applicant, it's good to be here, especially when there's somebody in opposition, to be able to present their case reasoning for approval. So you'd still have, you could hear it as it's presented and decide on it, or if you want to provide the applicant additional time, or maybe you want to have staff explain why the applicant's not here. But I just wanted to put that out there real quick and kind of see the direction you may want to go in that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Counselor
So
Doty.
just some comments. I think it has been extended for quite some time, and I'm not so sure that another extension, I would be in favor of that, just based on the packet and based on what's here. Certainly, they can come back again, if we don't extend it, but it looks like it's, did I read that right? Robin, that it's been extended for quite a couple of times in the packet? It's expired already, right?
Morgan Bisa, Planning and Zoning. Yes, the application expired in November of '22.
So it sounds like maybe go ahead and let's hear it, and kind of see how it goes on that. Okay, I just didn't, if you were wanting to.
I'm not sure what we wanna
Mhm.
do, but,
Yeah.
I'm willing to listen to our citizens that came out today, and just
Mhm.
because the developer didn't come, then let's hear what they have to say.
Okay, perfect, sounds great. So before we start, we're gonna go ahead and take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll jump right into that. Okay. Yep.
I asked them how many doors are coming, and this is what we got. I still
So we'll call it back to order. Are we back on Zoom and everything? Okay, so we are back live. So we are on action item number 3. This is case number TE 2319. This is for a time extension request, for preliminary plat, Canyon Crossing subdivision. So Morgan, time is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Morgan Besaw, Planning and Zoning. As mentioned, the application I'm presenting tonight is for Canyon Crossing subdivision. It is a plat renewal and extension. This is slightly different than the other time extensions I've brought you in the past because it does include that plat renewal. The site is located on the southwest corner of the intersection between Syringa Lane and Florida Avenue, approximately 880 feet north of Interstate 84. It's just over 5 acres. Canyon Crossing subdivision preliminary plat was approved in 2016. Phase 1 was recorded in 2020. A one-time administrative extension was approved and allowed Phase 2 to have until November of 2022 to record. The plat has been expired for close to a year and a half, and although it is expired, they estimate the completion, although it has been expired for close to a year and a half, all the underground utilities for Phase 2 have already been installed, and they do estimate completion of the pavement, sidewalk, and landscaping by this August, and recordation of the Phase 2 plat by December of '24. So this image to the right is the approved preliminary plat showing both Phase 1, which is the lower half, and Phase 2, which is the northern half. So Phase 1, which I'm showing in the bottom right corner, is a blown up snippet of the lower half of the preliminary plat. The full total Canyon Crossing consisted of 31 residential lots and 5 common lots, and Phase 1 consisted of 11 single-family lots. Phase 2, which is the only outstanding portion, includes 15 single-family dwelling units and 5 duplex lots. The thing that is interesting is that Phase 2 also includes all of the amenities and usable open space for this development. So you can see that red line on the landscaping plan. Everything below that has final plat approval and building permits can be issued. Phase 2 is what's outstanding, and this extension and renewal is for Phase 2. So without Phase 2, none of the basketball court, tot lots, open space, dog park, or picnic area will be developed for those residents in Phase 1. Per city code, applicants can apply for one preliminary plat renewal up to 18 months, which may be authorized by City Council for all expired preliminary plat approvals, provided the criteria above for extensions can be met, which is that the preliminary plat is still in the best interest, safety, health, and welfare of the city, that there have been no significant changes to code since the original preliminary plat approval, any modification to the layout and design of the originally approved preliminary plat are minimal, and that the preliminary plat still conforms to the new or amended development master plans, et cetera. So in this case, there are no changes being proposed to the layout. Agency notifications were sent out and no concerns were expressed by anyone internal or external, and no public comments were received in writing at the time of this being presented. I know the applicant is not here to present tonight. I will state that based on an email I received, the applicant was under the impression there was a representative that was going to be here. So I'm not sure what came up. I did speak to the attorney briefly before I came up, and one of the options for the application tonight would be either to open the public hearing and let everyone who did choose to attend be heard and still continue it to another night, so the applicant's representative would have another chance to come speak. That would be one option, but also the body could make whatever decision they wanted. There are draft conditions in the report in front of you that staff would recommend if council chooses to approve the request.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for Morgan at this time?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Are there any dwellings up on this entire location? Are there any buildings at all, or are they still starting?
So for Phase 1, I'm not entirely sure what has been constructed or not. I know all 11 single-family dwelling units in Phase 1 can have a building permit pulled currently. I'm not sure what the status is of any of those building permits.
I believe they're all built. All of these right here. Correct. right? That's phase one?
That is phase one, that's correct. Everything
Please.
below the red line.
I believe all of those are constructed. At the aerial that I'm looking at right now, the.
Oh, yes,
the
you're
color
right.
web map.
Those, oh, now I'm seeing where we're at. Yeah, those are built, the bottom, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
follow-up?
Oh, yeah. This developer has a terrible record with the city. And, I just would not give them any latitude whatsoever. If they're not meeting standards, they have not met standards in the past, and so.
Okay, any other questions for Morgan at this time? Council Register?
If this is denied, then what happens?
All eyes on Mr. Attorney.
I love how the attorney has to answer all my questions.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Register, as it currently sits, the plat has expired. This was a request to, renew it. And so if it's denied, nothing changes. It's still expired. I don't know if anything in our code or in law would allow him to come back and request that again. That would be the only other option you have, other than to bring back a new plat, which could repeat what you see in the existing plat. But to answer your question directly, nothing would change. The plat is already expired.
Yeah, so the zoning, so I just checked, it's zoned R2, medium density residential, so yeah, if it's not approved, if it's denied, then yeah, the plat is done, then they would need to resubmit for a preliminary plat to come back for hearing with city council to review and to decide whether or not to approve it. Would most likely be the next step. I imagine that's what they would. It sounds like there's utilities in the ground. I checked, they haven't been obviously accepted by the city yet, so they won't pull up on our map, but it sounds like sewer and water have both been installed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The applicant states that they are 70% through with the construction of phase two, horizontal infrastructure, and the only things outstanding would be landscaping, sidewalk, and then paving the road once the weather is appropriate for that.
When did it expire?
November of '22.
So a year and a half. I guess my problem is like with what Councilor Allgood said, there are some developers who don't follow the rules, and when we continue to allow them to not follow the rules, and then they come back and they continue to do it, or they put up bad projects like the one at 10th and Ustick. It's a disaster, I think, for the city, but we continue to let them do this. If that developer ever came back, I would also want to hold him accountable. So I can see there's not really any penalty for saying no tonight, with the exception of maybe being a nuisance to him. Doesn't sound like there's any fees or anything like that, but then it would force him to then appear and have to be held accountable in some way to the council. And I think that's important for us to do that with the developers that aren't following the rules.
Other questions?
A statement first and then
Mhm.
a comment, but I
Yeah.
think the fees are included because he has to start all over. So this is gonna be a great expense to him to go back to the beginning of the drawing board and represent. But my concern, and I think I know the answer to it, but let's be on record here. So he owns the entire property. This would not be subdivided off and sold.
If approved, if phase two plat is
Denied. If we deny this and we say we're tired of extensions and postponements, this owner continues to own that property. He can't come back to us and ask us to parcel that off.
he would have to come back and apply and show us a preliminary plat and how he was going to parcel it off. However, the parcel as it stands could be sold off, and a different developer could come forward with a preliminary plat for that
Again, it
phase.
would be a brand new development, starting from the beginning.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Morgan at this time? Okay, thank you so much. So we do have, I believe one person signed up. 1 second, we'll get you up here. Okay, so as mentioned, we don't have anybody signed up in favor or neutral, and we do have one person signed up in opposition. Phyllis Jewett? If you could give your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your
I
testimony.
am Phyllis Jewett. I live at 403 Hill Lane in Caldwell. This is a very, very, very bad project. It has been a mess from day one. He doesn't do anything he says he's going to do, and you guys have not made him. He was supposed to put in 2 play areas for the kids before he went into the project, which he wants the thing on now. He hasn't done any of it. The kids go across the street to the church, and that makes the church liable for if something would happen, and that's not good. This man has never done anything he said he was going to. Nothing. We've had at least 3 big police things up behind my house. This is right behind my house. Okay? One of them was a SWAT team. There was guys standing in the SWAT with 3 rifles pointing towards those terrible apartments. They look like army barracks anyway. And my neighbors called me to make sure that I was okay and that I was in my house, and it was locked. Because we had no idea what was going on. It's awful. It's just terrible. And if he's planning more of the same, I mean, these apartments that he's put in there looks like army barracks, and they're terrible. And if I don't know what he's planning on doing now, but if they look just as bad, it does not do anything for my neighborhood. And I have lived in my neighborhood since 1965. And it's just terrible. And all of the places that you guys do for the subdivisions, you make them put in a fence. First thing, fence. There is no fence. There is no berm. There is nothing. And you haven't made him do it. And then you had the sign. We came about that sign on that storage unit, and we said, no, he's got a sign up. But we said we didn't want the sign up. But he's got one. And it's up. So it's just awful. All of our neighbors are really, really upset about this. So I thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Doty.
I would just like to point out, it was approved in 2016, but that's why we're here now. We hear you, we hear what you're saying, and that's why the discussion is what it is now about should we continue or not. So we didn't have much control over the first ones that were built, but we can certainly take some action if the council so chooses tonight. So thank you for coming out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you so much, Phyllis. Appreciate you being here this evening. Okay, and that is all that is signed up on this matter. So again, the applicant is not here, the representative is not here. So you do have, as Morgan had mentioned before, whether you want to move forward tonight with the decision, or if you feel it's appropriate to continue it with the public testimony portion open, could do so to allow the applicant or his representative to come back at a future hearing. So completely up to yes.
Mr. Mayor, here's a couple things I'd say with it.
Mm-hmm.
Since it was approved so long ago, I don't have a problem with having him come back so that we can put some of the conditions we talk about. I mean, I don't know what the conditions were in 2016 on the phase 2. And so this way we could make him come back and we could make sure that it is a nicer project, so to speak, if it is not up to the standards. And 2, we're talking about the amenities. Well, if this won't come in, neither will the amenities. Well, it's already been extended once, now extended again. So this subdivision or these apartments have gone without the amenities for years now. And so I'm in favor of making a motion tonight, and I'm not in favor of extending any time. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Register.
Check my microphone. I, actually agree with Counselor Doty. I think that,
I noticed that
for
too.
once, that we should be holding the developers accountable, and I feel for you. I'm in a very similar position by where I live, where, we had a really nice neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, an apartment building went up, and unfortunately, it was not something that had to be approved by council even at that time, and I'm hoping the codes have changed, but I understand and appreciate exactly how you're feeling, and I think that's exactly what this council should be doing, is listening to the residents of the community and making changes where we can. So I agree with Counselor Doty as far as making him come back and holding him accountable, and possibly whatever changes we can do to make it better.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments, discussion? Counselor Denber?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question of our attorney. So, would the motion be to, if I'm gonna vote against it, any extension, I'm not, so would the motion be to approve the extension and then we all vote against it? Or would we change the motion to vote no and then vote in the affirmative? How would you prefer this happen?
It would be, I'll jump in, Aaron, correct me if you're wrong. Sorry, Mr. Sable. Don't Aaron wait Mr. Sable way too long to call him Mr. Sable, but, it would be a motion to, if that's the way you're wanting to go, it would be a motion to deny, and then depending on who wanted to approve that motion, they would vote in favor to deny it, rather than, not a double negative, it'd be a motion to deny the request, and then those in favor would vote yes, and those in opposition would vote no. And if more yeses than no's, then it would deny the request. Does that make somewhat sense?
That does. And Mr. Mayor, I have another question to Mr. Doty. I think you made a motion then not to allow the extension.
I haven't yet.
Okay.
I plan to if, when Mr. Mayor asks for us to do so.
Okay, motions are always appropriate at any time, so you're more than welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Doty.
based upon the testimony and evidence in the record in the matter upon the findings of fact and conclusion of the law, I move that TE 23-19 for a plat, renewal, and 18-month extension for Canyon Crossing subdivision be denied.
Okay. So we have a motion from Counselor Doty, a second from Counselor Dentenber, and again, this, just to clarify for everyone, this is a motion for denial, so your yes vote means that you're voting in support of the request to deny the proposal.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor.
may I add the because, and you can, fix it if it's not, I think the time of the expiration, is, significant. It's beyond reason how long it's been expired, and because of changes in our, approvals, we would like to revisit this, since it has already been expired. It is not simply a plat extension, but a, help me, staff, a renewal. And so, based on those facts, it is denied. Is that accurate, Mr. Doty?
Sure.
Okay. Does that help, Madam Clerk?
That's a long motion.
Sorry, it is the because.
Okay. Okay, so again, the motion is for denial of the request. Is
So
there
a
any
yes
other-
vote is to denial.
Yes, a yes vote is for denial.
Got it.
Okay, with that, voting is open at this time. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that does pass unanimously. So the denial passes unanimously on that request. So the, request for extension is denied. Motion to close action item number 3.
So moved.
And the second? All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. And that was Counselor Stoddard with the motion and Counselor Doty with the second. Okay, that moves us into action item number 4. This is for a zoning ordinance amendment, ZOA 24-1, requested by the City of Caldwell Planning and Zoning Department. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The most exciting part of tonight. Hope you're ready for the riveting code amendments. I know you guys read every word, so you don't even need me, right? Maybe? Well, I'll do it anyways. This is round 1 of many. As we discussed in a workshop, I honestly don't even remember when that was now, a month or so. Probably 5 or so amendments this year, depending on timing. This is the package 1. There we go. Tonight is Chapter 10, Articles 1, 3, and 11, and then Chapter 11, Articles 1 and 2. Again, we did hold a workshop with you. We plan to hold additional workshops to communicate any substantial amendments. We also plan to have an upcoming stakeholder meeting to discuss the next round 2, with development community, which really professionals, home builders, architects, as well as just land developers, as well as other planners in the region. So why do we need these updates? Robin went over this pretty extensively in our workshop, but just to refresh everyone, it is really to help fix the internal conflicts and inconsistencies that's in code currently. There's a lot of confusing concepts and just contradictory language within different sections of code, so we're starting that process to just go in and clean a lot of this up. There's a lot of areas that just lack adequate clarity in general, or just plain missing certain provisions. As noted, it's not user-friendly, both for staff and the general public. So we go through these regularly to try to make sure that things are clear for everybody involved so that we can provide the best information to you to make your decisions. So part of that is exploring new procedures, processes to improve this. We also look at emerging land uses, development trends, and technologies so that we can incorporate those into our processing. We also want to reflect current policies of council, administrations, et cetera. We want to aid in reducing future text amendments. So if we set this up right, or as what we reflect as right now, it'll help reduce the amount of times we got to come in and just thrill your minds with code amendments. And we want to just continuously amend and develop these new regulations to just reflect the vision for the city as we go through all of our updates. So, big start is just a reformatting of the code, moving pieces around, not necessarily amending things like textual in each line, but just moving things around to make sure we're formatting this and setting up for the future. We moved annexation provisions from Article 1 and Article 3 with other procedural requirements, so that makes more sense now. We also created a new section for split zoning because currently our code didn't discuss it, and that's something that we don't typically want in planning. You don't want to create a parcel, one parcel, with 2 different zoning districts. It makes regulating that parcel very difficult. So we put new provisions in there for that. We also created a new section for alignment of zoning with the comp plan land use designations, which again, wasn't technically in there, but we had done it in practice, so we want to formalize that. We also consolidated all the definitions, which were strewn all throughout code, into one section, so that way it's much clearer to everybody where you're going to find the definitions. What is an automotive repair shop? What is an adult entertainment business? Those lovely conversations. Any of those types of things. We also moved all sections dealing with violations in code and all those penalties into one section as well. We then split out amendment and reclassification section into different code sections because currently it only really discusses, I believe, rezones? Just comp plan and not rezones. So we were using the comp plan amendment text for our findings text for rezones. That's just not appropriate. It's not sufficient. So we included additional language to help us get that. And then also adoption and amendment and repeal of the comp plan itself, as well as just development agreements and creating that own section for that. We also changed the industrial airport overlay zone chapter title to overlay zoning districts and reformatted the numbering so we can put all overlay districts into one chapter and again, not have those in multiple places. We created a new section for provisions for administrative lot splits. I want to take a second on this just to say that that is because we have parcels throughout the city that have right-of-way that split a parcel, but you click on the parcel, or it's actually one parcel number even though it's 2 parcels. And so legally, that has not been split through a survey yet, and therefore they would have to do a simple lot split with our current rules. Well, you can only do one simple lot split, and so when there's right-of-way, we don't want to penalize people for having to lose that opportunity to do a simple lot split simply because there's right-of-way or some other easement through the property that would divide the property. So we just created a new process to have an administrative lot split so they do not get penalized, and they can do a simple lot split if it's an original parcel of record, and there's a couple other requirements there. We also updated incorrect code sections and clarifications throughout several sections of the code, again, just cleaning that up. Reformatted the subdivision ordinance for preliminary plats into one section, because again, those are in multiple places. We reformatted provisions for final plats into one section, again, same reason. We also amended the process for submission and approval of final plat drawings. So this kind of is one of the issues we are seeing with the time extension that you guys just heard is our current process requires all the improvements to be built and in place before the final plat can even come before you. That is not a typical industry practice in the valley. Typically, you want the construction drawings and the final plat to kind of come through together, so that way if there's any changes, you catch that, both for the public hearing and also for staff. And so we just are updating that process to allow the final plat to be submitted with the construction drawings. The recording component of actually recording the lots will not change. That has to be recorded after everything's in and there's bonds in place, et cetera. So that part hasn't changed, but just the, I guess, ministerial final plat application will get submitted earlier so that staff has time to review it. We also created new sections for final plat signature, final plat recording, again, to formalize that process because we currently do not have that. And then updated plat expirations, renewals, again, similar to what we just heard, and changes to the approved subdivision name text and the administrative lot split that I had mentioned. So the preliminary plat expiration dates we've updated to now be basically in 2-year blocks. The initial is a 3-year, and then after that, every phase needs to be every 2 years. At current rate, I believe it's 2 years and then 1 year, and 1 year in today's development world is just usually not enough to get things completed, infrastructure, and especially with weather and asphalt plants shutting down, et cetera. It's just not enough time, and so we have multiple time extensions in front of you that just are unnecessary. So trying to help alleviate some of that because it's still being processed, but it just didn't meet that, really unattainable timeline. We also are updating private street section within the subdivision code to allow multifamilies to have private streets, which they kind of already have in a way, but we're just formalizing that. We also amended the short plat process to allow these to go straight to city council. So current process is a short plat. It has very specific criteria. It's less than 5 lots or a condominium plat, which is just subdividing airspace. Would have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. Now we're just proposing it go straight to council, which is what other cities in the valley do as well, just because they're generally much simpler than a preliminary plat, for example. We also amended code to allow time extensions to be approved administratively so that it goes off of your dockets altogether. We're also amending the code to automatically extend other application types when associated with a plat. So for example, if you have a preliminary plat and a PUD and a SUP, when you extend the plat because of timing issues, et cetera, it automatically extends those other applications, so we're not having to do multiple extensions or weird things with the dates and stuff. It just keeps the project cohesive from start to finish. We also just, again, general cleanup of codes to address current policies and procedures. And I hope you guys got our little cheat sheet. It went through this more line by line. Happy to do that with you now if you'd like, if you have specific questions. But I will stand for any other questions you have too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Questions from Council Kelter? Doty?
I'd just like to make some comments. During my career, I've been involved in writing many new code sections as well as titles and changing the title around and getting the definitions where they need to go, where it says one thing different in one area than another. So it doesn't fall short on me of the time and effort it takes to put this thing together. And in the end, hopefully it'll help the developers and council as well.
Absolutely.
To move these through more quickly, and that we don't have all of these different opinions of what one word or what definition it means in which section. So I support it, and I certainly appreciate everyone's work on doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councilor.
Any other questions, Councilor Allgood?
Will you go back a couple slides for me? One more, please. I'm not seeing, the one I was seeing had to do with allowing private streets in some subdivisions.
In multifamily, the update, the green section right there.
Yeah, okay. So can you kind of describe to me what that looks like?
Sure. So there's multiple ways to do it in the industry. Currently, our code just allows quote-unquote private streets within commercial developments. The practice usually extends to multifamily as well, where you have one parcel, but obviously you need access, right? So you can do a private street either in a common lot, which if you're subdividing the property, then you would put it in a common lot typically, or you just do a public access and maintenance easement over that drive aisle, and usually includes the parking as well. And that's really the only update, is just now allowing that in our code. It was typically done, from what I have seen, again, I've only been here 6 months or so, that it was done through the PUD process, which then just amended the code or allowed that deviation. Now it just formalizes that allowance that we can do the private street within multifamily without having to go through extra hoops.
Remind me, Mr. Mayor, didn't we, in the past, require them to deed the streets to the city? Was that common?
Typically, yeah. So I think what this is, and correct me if I'm wrong in that, I'm looking at, trying to find an example. So I'm looking at KCID and Enterprise Way. Maybe, I don't know if we could even pull that up, where it's really kind of like the drive aisles. It's not like I wouldn't call it a true street. I hate to say that, but where you turn into like this mass, this has like 20 different apartment buildings in it. So you're turning in there off of the public street, and it's really like drive aisles. It doesn't even appear to be streets. I think that's what we're getting at, is those are like private streets, so that way they can be named. So for fire, it's much easier than trying to find building 102. Now you've got, for example, on this one, there's Rigby Lane, so you'd have 1405 Rigby Lane. So it's actually addressed to that. It's a private street. Are you able to pull that up? So yeah, for example, so this is a great example. So correct me again if I'm going in the wrong direction or not. So I think what basically saying is, usually these wouldn't be named. This would just basically be a big loop coming in. So all of these would be off of Enterprise Way, and then the building's numbered. So what this allows is these are now private streets, because really they're not serving a public purpose. The public is not using that, obviously, to get to point A to point B. The only people using that are the private citizens within there. So rather than these just being no-named, it allows them to be named streets. So and again, I think it would make it easier, and I know Chief Perry and others are here, so they can correct me later if they want to, but I think it'd make it easier for fire and for police to find, rather than, finding building 102 off Enterprise Way, now they can go Rigby Lane, 1405 or whatever it is, they know it's that building right there. Is that kind of more or less?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. And I forgot about the life safety component, but that is a huge reason why a lot of jurisdictions want to allow private streets versus unnamed drive aisles in multifamily, because of the additional addressing you can do.
So I'm thinking of the development that's going in by the Sage truck stop up along the freeway. It's gonna be a huge.
Yeah.
Are all of those roads in there gonna be private?
So I think that would be, if it's laid out like this, probably similar. If it provides a connection, I think, to somewhere else, that's where you want to get the public. But if it is literally just providing circulation within that development, that's where that private street would come into play.
So the city has no responsibility for maintenance, snow clearing, et cetera, in those.
Correct.
In those areas?
Yeah, if they're private streets, that's what the easement is for, or the common lot, it'd be the property manager. Your rent for each unit goes into a fund to maintain those roads, those drive aisles, yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr.
Great
Mayor.
question, by the way. Yes,
Mayor, I've
Councilor
got a
Scott.
question. So the private streets, are they allowed to name their streets?
Yes, they have to comply with naming conventions, like you can't repeat it.
Okay.
Certain things.
All right, and I noticed that on private streets, they have a certain color to them too. Is that gonna continue, or?
Yes, it's certain for the GIS systems and whatever, so that way visually you know quickly, oh, that's a private street versus a public.
Yeah, they're blue. Public are green, and then the private streets are blue.
Yep.
And do they pay for that sign then, or?
I believe they do, yes, because it's private, yep.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, excellent job, by the way, very well presented, and yes, I agree with Councilor Doty. Looking at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, don't even want to think of the number of work hours that went into that, so very well done.
Full team effort. We have a great team, so full team effort.
You do. Okay, there's nobody signed up to testify on this matter, so with that, I'd stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, so that moves into deliberation. Again, if you have additional questions for staff, you can do that. And also any motions, again, in regards to, this is action item number 5 for ZOA 24-1.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Dittenberg.
I do have a question, if I can ask a question of staff. So you, very cleverly in your justification, use words like update, reformat, clarify more accurately, and realign, which pretty much means you did everything. So is there any duplications in there that need, we think that if we approve this, that there's no duplications of what you've updated, reformatted, clarified, or realigned?
Mayor, Council, Dittenberg, I would say there's probably are some duplicates that in future updates, we're gonna have to come back and delete them. And mostly because there's certain things we can't change right now because that code section's just not open, or we're gonna open it in the next round. So yes, there will be some duplications, but for the large part, this is cleaning that up. And you'd see through the strike through and underline changes that there are swaths of sections just completely getting wiped out and then moved into a new section. But if you approve it tonight, this will be an improvement to the overall formatting of the code, absolutely.
Okay.
Mayor.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Mayor, gonna make a
Oh,
motion.
there we go, over there.
Sorry, over here. Mayor and Councilman Dittenberg, just to clarify what Joe was saying, for instance, the definitions, we moved them all into one section, and as we reformat other sections of the code, those definitions are still there in those other sections, so when we open them, we'll delete them. So that's where the duplications are right now. But it's not gonna impact anything because the definitions are still the same. We've just got them in two places at the moment, so that, when we open them up, we can delete them. Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor, I have another question. So then this has to do more about the location of the specific parts of the ordinance rather than the wording or the intent of the ordinance?
Mayor and Councilor, they're both, throughout these ordinance changes. So, and that's where you'll see in some of the cheat sheets that we gave you, you know, some of them are just moving text, some of them is clarifying text, but where we have actual duplicates, I would say the duplicates are mostly the definitions, and mainly because they're spread throughout 15 different sections of the code, and we're putting them into one section. When you get into the other amendments that are in there, like the annexations or the ordinance text amendments, there is no duplications.
So as we go forward, it will be more simple for you to make the amendments?
Absolutely, and that's the whole reason for reorganizing. So for instance, like right now, if somebody wants to find out what their requirements are in a medium density zoning, there's some requirements in the very beginning of chapter 10, there's some in Article 1, Article 2, and then if they're in a mixed use district, they're in a different article. If they're in downtown, they're in a different article. So what we're trying to do is make the code where all mixed use districts are under one article, and then you can go to the different classifications. All residential zoning districts are under one article, and then you go to the individual R1, R2, R3, but the requirements are not spread out through the code. And then we would make a general use provision section where that would be your stuff like landscaping that is applicable to all zoning districts. So does that help answer your question? Yeah. So then when the comp plan comes into place and we have to make future amendments, we've already got it reformatted, and then coming in and making those amendments based on the new comp plan will be much easier.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilor Register.
I have a motion.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Based upon the testimony and evidence and record on this matter and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I move that, and I have to read the whole thing?
No, you can just say approve, number 4.
ZOA 24-1 for a zoning ordinance text amendment to amend portions of the Caldwell City Code, Chapter 10, Articles 1, 3, and 11, and portions of Chapter 11, Articles 1, 2, and 3, to be approved, subject to the conditions as presented. Well, there's no conditions, right? I don't have to read that part, do I?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, because that didn't make any changes, right?
So, okay, so we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
So the motion is from Councilor Register and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of case number ZOA 24-1. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. Time for a motion to close this public hearing item.
So moved.
And a second? But, so a motion from Councilor Stoddard, second from Councilor Doty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So that moves us to, again, this is just a housekeeping item, is the bill and ordinance for this zoning ordinance amendment. So do we have a sponsor, Bill 14, ordinance number 3576?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I'll sponsor bill number 14, ordinance number 3576. request a move for its passage and approve the summary for publication.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Register, for adoption of bill number 14, ordinance number 3576. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, the voting is open for
Done.
that, and you guys are getting good at that. So that passes unanimously, so they were ready to go. Okay, that moves us into, the next action item actually is requested to be continued by staff, so it'll be back on April 2nd. And then, so that
Mr.
moves
Mayor.
us into action item number, oh, yes.
On action item number 6, though, do we have anybody here that was,
There was one here earlier, I know that Debbie spoke to. Do we have to have a motion to do that? Is it- Oh, okay, it was printed out. So we do, sorry, I apologize, we do need a motion for that. So there was an individual here earlier, Debbie was able to speak to him, let him know at the, before the meeting started that would be her at the next one, and he will be here at that time. So this is a request to continue this item to April 2nd. This is for the vacation of public right-of-way along Arthur Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. So do we have a motion for the continuation of that item to April 2nd?
So moved.
And a second? So motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Stodic. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes, so that'll be heard again, April 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m. here in this room. Now we are on action item number 7, a resolution authorizing the purchase of fitness equipment in the amount not to exceed $35,000 for fitness equipment to be used by the Caldwell Fire Department. Is Chief Shoup, it's all you.
Good evening. Matt Shoup, Caldwell Fire, 403 Blaine. We are asking for the approval to update old antiquated fitness equipment at primarily station number 1 and station number 2. That hasn't been updated since the pretty much the building of those stations. With the addition of more personnel at both of those stations and the antiquated equipment, we're trying to keep our personnel in top fitness for us to be able to do our profession and do our job, and to maintain their health. So we're asking for a budget amendment of existing funds to be shifted into gotta make sure, minor equipment, so that we're able to purchase new equipment and update it. This equipment will be able to go to Fire Station 1 when it's rebuilt, and it will be continued use, so it will have a long-term use for it, and we also are working on a maintenance program to make it last longer than that. Past that point, I stand for questions.
Excellent. My maintenance program is just don't use it, and then it lasts forever. It's treadmills. So, yes, Counselor Doty.
Where are we moving the funds from?
It would be moving it from improving buildings to minor equipment. In the minor equipment account, we did not end up using all the amount in that account for some purchases because we were able to purchase some of our bailout kits and our thermal imagers at a reduced cost because of a bulk purchase. And so we were able to save some of the money out of that, and then moving funds from the improving buildings account, we're able to shift that in there and of an amount of $15,000 out of that one account, which would give us the $35,000 required for purchase.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Just to
Counselor
follow
Doty.
up.
Yep.
Just to make sure, though, those buildings aren't gonna be built for a couple of years, so you're comfortable with moving that out of your maintenance fund?
Yes.
Instead of using it on the, I mean, Fire Station 1 still may need something before the next one's built, so I just wanna make sure that we've considered that.
We have considered that, and we've worked with finance to make sure that what we're doing is appropriate within our realm of what we're doing, and trying to make sure that the equipment is maintained.
Excellent.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, then this is before council for your review. Any discussion or any motions or questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Doty.
Make a motion that we approve the fitness equipment for the fire department not to exceed $35,000.
Good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So motion from Counselor Doty, a second from Counselor Stodic for approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion?
I have something to say.
Yes.
As we know, twice now I've had the opportunity to go out with the fire department to climb stairs and do stuff, and they need this very much because people that don't do that workout stuff are gonna die. So I think you need it very much.
Very good. Excellent. Any other discussion? Okay, very good. So then voting is open. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. And that moves us into action item number 8, resolution authorizing the purchase of equipment for equipping the 3 new fire engines, one of which is, I don't know if it's still outside, but it was out there earlier. This is for a total amount of $525,000. Chief Frawley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, city staff, members of the Caldwell community. Rick Frawley, Fire Chief for 3 Blaine. Stand in front of you respectfully asking for approval by council to utilize impact fees to purchase 3 sets of the equipment that will be going onto each one of our new fire engines. As the mayor pointed out earlier, thanks to the hard work of Chief Shoup and Captain Berryman back there, we do have our first engine that was delivered to Meridian last week. It's going back to Meridian for upfitting, for final preparation before it goes in service. We have a second engine that's on order, that's on week 5 of construction, that should be here by the end of May, beginning of June. And we have plans for the purchase of a 3rd unit that was part of the budget process that council approved for this year. So we're very thankful for that, those resources, those apparatus. That's really going to make a difference for the community. What this equipment here will do is this will allow us to have turnkey fire engines that our crews can use, and the existing fire engines can stay in reserve, and there won't be a transfer of equipment. That means we can stand up additional fire resources, say for 4th of July or for a large event. The crews would come in, they'd get onto the reserve fire apparatus, and they'd be able to hit the streets and respond to calls. This also gives us standardized equipment across all 3 primary apparatus, and that makes sure that our training meets better standards in terms of having that same equipment across all 3 pieces of equipment. And with that, I stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Chief. Any questions for Chief?
Quick question.
Yes, Councilor Allgood.
With all these new engines, how are you doing for parking?
Parking is always a challenge. What we're doing, one of our goals, and thank you for bringing that up, sir, we want to have a reserve fire engine at every fire station. That way, it makes emergency backup and response. So when we take a unit out of service for maintenance, our crew has a resource that's ready to go, and they can just walk straight across, move over some radios, because we don't duplicate radios, maybe some SCBAs, the self-contained breathing apparatus, but that way we have enough room. One of our plans as we look to a long-term planning within the organization is we're looking at ways that we can identify storage areas, because we want to keep our vehicles inside. One of those areas that we're considering right now in our plan that we'll be bringing to council will be the training site that we share with CPD, and having more storage facilities there so we can keep our vehicles stored and in a safe location.
Okay. Follow-up? Or?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the discussions years ago was out at Station 2, we own all that park out there, is expanding the footprint of that area for storage, for covered storage, because you don't want that stuff outside, clearly.
Yes, sir. That we would definitely be in support of working with city staff to expand the footprint of Station 2. And ironically enough, Chief Stoll and myself were having a conversation earlier after his presentation, because he's indicated that Station 2 would be a really good location for his resources. Currently, Station 2 has reached maximum saturation. You know, we can't put any more people in there because we have an engine and we have a squad. The squad is definitely helping to reduce the call volume for the engine, which we appreciate. But I know that there is the capability of adding on to Station 2, specifically on the east side of the building. And one of the concepts we were just actually discussing would be taking a little bit of a turnaround behind Station 2 to increase parking, but also give us more access for their resources and use, as well as for parking back there for apparatus.
Are you still storing training equipment out there as well?
A little bit at Station 2. We've tried to move as much as we can out to the training site, because we want it to be centrally located. Part of the initiative that we're working on with the training site this year is to extend water supply out to the training site, working with our partners in the police department, because they're looking at improving sites as well. So we're working together to make that a more of an efficient training site for all public safety.
Thank you.
No.
Any other questions? Okay.
Mayor.
Oh, yes.
No, I don't know how we approve buying fire engines and don't approve outfitting them. So I move that we approve this resolution authorizing the purchase of equipment in the amount of $525,000.
Very good. So we have a motion from Counselor Williams and a second from Counselor Denver for approval of this resolution. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, the voting is open. And all votes are cast. The voting is closed, and that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate all you do. So that moves us into action item number 9, resolution accepting revenue from the receipt of the National Opioid Settlement Funds in the amount of $66,110.22. Ray Lynn.
So this resolution's pretty easy. Every year we get, we budget for about $18,000 that we get from the settlement of opioid blends. This received a lot more, this year, and so this is just anything that's not budgeted, we run through council, and so this is just to let you know that we did receive this revenue. Right now, we do not have anything slated, but we work with CPD because there are certain processes, and when we accept the settlement, there are certain things that we can only spend it on, so when we decide to spend it, you will get a resolution, most likely, on what we spend it on, so.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Ray Lynn? Okay, any discussions or any motions on this resolution?
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Doty.
Motion that we accept the revenue from the receipt of the National Opioid Settlement Funds in the amount of $66,110.22.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion from Counselor Doty and second from Counselor Register for adoption and approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, voting is open. Voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. Okay, that moves us on to the next. See if I can keep up now that we're starting to move along here. Number 10, resolution authorizing review of the overages for changes orders associated with the remodel project at the new city hall.
Raylyn North, Finance Director. I also have Brett. He's been overseeing the project. So if you have any questions about the project, he can answer this. But essentially, with the project, there was a specific contract that we set with Kreisenbeck, I believe is who we bid. And there's been several change orders based off of, and the change orders were attached to the documentation. So you can see they were very reasonable with the change orders. There's nothing that is over and beyond. But each of the change orders, positive or negative, offered a change in the budget. And so, and then with talking with Brett, there could be, I know just after we even submitted that there's 2 roll-up doors that are not even included in this. So we have increased the budget just a little bit to pad that, to make sure we don't come to you with additional change orders. So this $70,000 request is not coming from general fund. It's coming from a cash fund balance from Fund 28, which is where the rent payments from Treasurer TBCC came in. So it is coming from that fund balance. So I'll stand for any questions that you guys have.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Really, I've been getting a lot of calls on this, why it's keeps going up, and I guess the question is, are we utilizing the existing furniture equipment that we have to facilitate the new building, or, you know, why the increases?
So I will say this, and Brett can probably talk to like in the building of what's been reused, but I will say for the furniture, which I did bring to you guys a couple of weeks ago, the furniture, we had to buy new furniture because we are condensing 3 buildings into 1 building, and so we are going from an office system to a cubicle system. So we really had to condense that down and buy that, and that's a tight space to fit everybody into. So that was the purchase for new furniture. Now, I will say, when we all move, there will be furniture that we will be surplusing. So if it's not used by other departments first, we will surplus that, and there will be funds collected from the surplus that will go back to general fund.
Okay.
So, can bring
That's
Brett
fine.
up.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Good enough.
Yeah, Councilor Doty.
So like the roll-up door change,
Yeah.
was it not included in the original budget and now something's happened that we're putting in roll-up doors, or was it just missed?
So those original roll-up doors, the biggest thing is that, you know, with the change, I think it's just one of those that there wasn't, in the design, there wasn't that initial where that the public's gonna be, right? And so, you know, as we're going through in this, people are now walking through, directors are walking through, and they're like, hey, how are we gonna secure our offices from the public? You know, 'cause some of them, it's not just as easy as putting a badge door, or something like that. And so the roll-up doors are those extra change orders.
For safety and security, it sounds like.
Say that one more time?
For safety and security, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, that's it, thank you so much, appreciate that, and thank you, Brett, for being here. I know I saw him somewhere walk in, hiding over there, so thank you, appreciate you being here. Okay, so any discussion, questions for staff, or any motions in regards to this item?
Well, Mr. Mayor, can we have him speak for just a second?
Yeah, if you'd like to,
So,
yeah.
I just wanna know if he anticipates, based on what we've already changed or are changing, is he anticipating any more than what we've done so far? Kinda to piggyback on Counselor Stoddard with, are we gonna see more, another 70 grand of changes? So, just wondering what we're.
This should cover it. I don't anticipate any, there's gonna be a few minor. I know we've got some carpeting issues we need to fix. I think I got an estimate of $500 for that today. So we might see a few of these little things pop up, but it should all fall within the 70,000.
Thank you.
And they're very close to being done, they should start putting furniture in the next couple weeks. So, which should limit any additional changes, where if you're putting furniture in, you're pretty much done. So,
Just one other question,
Yeah.
Mayor.
Mhm.
How are we doing with the TVC biological lab and all that? Are they, any schedule on that, when that's gonna be out of there, or have they said anything
I
at
have
all?
not heard one thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so back to council, if you do have any other questions, staff is here, or if you have any discussion or any motions.
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Doty.
I'll make a motion that we approve, the budget overages from the change orders associated with City Hall, floors 1 and 2, in the amount of 70 grand.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Dentenber for approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. And that puts us to the next one. Consider resolution authorizing the purchase of computer equipment associated with the City Hall remodel project in the amount of $13,687. Raylene?
So I also have Jose with me if you have any specific questions about this, but this is for 10 new computers in the council room, as well as to replace some big monitors. So these monitors will stay here with CPD, and we are buying new ones for the council room at the new building. So.
Very good, thank you so much. Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Counselor
Maybe
Doty.
Jose needs to come up, but did you say we're buying 10 new computers?
10 all-in-one computers to replace the current ones, yes.
For the chambers or for people individually, or?
For the
what-
chambers.
Okay.
Yes.
So they'll be more mounted there rather than having your laptops in front of you, if I'm not mistaken, on it.
So,
But they're
Yes.
making fees for?
Yes.
Go ahead.
yeah,
Counselor,
I just, one of Counselor Doty's and I's favorite things is our microphone system and communications. That's taken care of in some budget as well. We'll have a mic system that works.
Yep, and that should be was in the original budget. So yes, the microphones will be all state of the art. It'd be nice that I should be able to light up at the top, so when you want to speak, I don't have to watch for actions. You'll basically push a button and you'll have a light at the top, so you know where it's at. So that's all in the budget. It will be much, much better than what we have now.
And on those rare occasions where we have to attend by Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
we can actually watch the whole thing on one screen instead of three and that kind of
Yep.
thing.
And you should be able to actually hear it and know what's going on, and have different camera angles as well, where you're not just staring at the back head of whoever's presenting.
I'm so
So,
excited. That'd
yeah.
be so nice.
I think our IT department's very excited as well, so it'd be great. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion for this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Dittenber.
I make a motion that we authorize the purchase of the computer equipment associated with the Nancola Center City Hall remodel project for the amount of $13,687.
Do you have a second? Motion from Counselor Dittenber and a second from Counselor Allgood, and for approval of this resolution. Any discussion? Okay, voting is open. All votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. And that moves us into action item number 12. This is for consider bill number 20, ordinance 3582, for amendments to the Caldwell City Code, chapter 6, pertaining to private patrol licensing. Is this you?
I don't know.
Or Mr. Hilty, Mr. Sable?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I was not involved in the preparation of this ordinance, but it does look fairly simple, and I would stand ready to answer any questions you might have that I can see from the text that is before you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Sable?
Why don't we have Debbie?
Debbie, you want to just give a quick overview of what it is?
Mayor and council, in review of city code one day, we happened to notice that there was an item within the patrol licensing. When it was originally created, apparently they felt like the revenue should go towards education with patrol services. Well, there's not enough revenue to even justify that. So in taking that to our finance director, she asked that that be removed, so that basically, all the revenue basically from that covers administrative costs. There isn't any excess to really deal with. We've never had any excess with that fund anyway. So it was just a housekeeping issue to remove that. I stand for any questions?
Any questions?
Debbie, they obtain a license from you.
Yes, they do.
There's no requirement that they have to meet, they don't have post bond or proof insurance or anything like that, or do they?
They do.
They
So
do.
there's administrative checklist that we go through with them, and of course, the chief of police, we work with them for the review of their uniform and their badge and that type of thing still.
So that's
But-
still in place?
Yes, it is. So basically, all the administrative end is with the city clerk's office, so.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Then, again, this is a bill and ordinance, so we would need a sponsor.
Mayor.
Yes.
I'll sponsor bill number 20, ordinance number 3582, for amendments to the Caldwell City Code, Chapter 6, Article 221, Section 06-21-03, and move for its passage and approve the summary for publication.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Studek for passage of Bill 20, ordinance 3582. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, and the voting is open.
Pick up, John.
Second made the motion, isn't that good enough? Okay, all votes are cast, so that closes, and that does pass unanimously.
Maybe that'll work better.
Yeah, I guess so.
Better, right? So, okay, that moves us into action item number 13. So this is for amendments to the Caldwell City Code pertaining to the Public Works Director. It was noticed, we appreciate Ray Lynn, I believe, is what brought this to our attention. So some duties that need to be changed, taken off of the Public Works Director that really is not applicable to that anymore in that regards. So I don't know, do you want to touch on that real quick, Ray Lynn? And also, you're not going to get as many steps either, because you're not going to have to walk up to the microphone every time. You'll actually be able to do it from your seat.
So as you know, last year you guys approved, the purchasing specialist that I oversee. And in the ordinance, or in the city code currently, it says that all RFPs have to be done by the Public Works Director. And currently, that's not how we operate. So I just asked that that be removed so we can kind of set that in policy, so.
Thanks so much. Any questions? Appreciate Raylan finding that and helping us to get that fixed, so. Okay, so, again, that is just that amendment to correct that oversight on that. So do we have a sponsor of this bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Allgood.
sponsor bill number 23, ordinance number 3585, and moves for its passage and approve the summary for publication.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Counselor Allgood and a second from Counselor Register for adoption of bill number 23, ordinance number 3585. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, with that, voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. And that moves us into action item number 14, and this is for another bill and ordinance, and this is housekeeping for the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District to annex these properties into that. So this is for Breckenridge Apartments, which is ordinance number 3587, and Selah Estates, ordinance number 3588. Do we have a sponsor of these bills and ordinances?
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Allgood.
I will, wait, okay, we're on 14, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay. I'll sponsor bill number 25, ordinance number 3587, and bill number 26, ordinance number 3588, and move for their passage.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Allgood and a second from Counselor Register for approval of these bills and ordinances. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. That moves us into action item number 15, another resolution, declaring real property known as 709 Main Street as surplus property with an intent to convey, exchange, or offer for sale said property, declaring its value, and set the public hearing date for April 16th, 2024. Mr. Sable.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll keep my comments as brief as as you'd like them to be. But as I believe all of you have seen before, the city has the authority to sell property after it is declared that it is surplus or underutilized. There is a procedure to follow. This is the first step that creates a hearing opportunity for anyone to come to express their opinion as to whether the property truly is underutilized or what the price should be. At that hearing or following that hearing, the council will declare a minimum sales price or declare that there is no minimum sales price, and it will go forward to a public bidding or auction setting from there. If it doesn't sell at that auction setting, then the city can sell it the city council can determine and just go to sale, and you'll have an opportunity to determine whether that's in the best interest to proceed forward after that. But this is step one in that process.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Sable?
Just a comment?
Yes, Councilor Doty.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is a good idea. I think, I'm familiar with this address, and right now it collects 0 tax dollars, right? So selling it, if we're definitely not gonna put anything in that space, so I support it.
Thank you
guess
so much.
is what I'm trying to say.
Appreciate that. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sable. Don't go far, because we're gonna use you again here pretty quick. Okay, so do we have a motion for adoption of this resolution?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 7924.
Very good. Do we have a second?
And
Oh.
set the public hearing date for April 16th, 2024.
Very good. So it's a motion from Councilor Doty, and there's a second from Councilor Static, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. So that's for approval of this resolution, again, setting that date, public hearing date for April 16th, 2024. Any discussion? Okay, and the voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. Mr. Sable, action item number 16.
Please see prior comments.
Yeah, which is exactly right. So
Same
this is-
discussion, different property. Go ahead, Mr.
It's
Mayor.
vacant property at Albany Street in North Kimball, and exactly like Mr. Sable said, same as the one before. So I don't know if there's any comments on this
Same
one. or-
comments as
okay.
I made before,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Mayor.
ditto on all of that. Very good. Okay. Then do we have a motion for this, approval of this resolution?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Doty.
I gotta be on it. Resolution number, I move that we approve resolution number 80-24, declaring real property located at the east of intersection of Albany Street and North Kimball Avenue as surplus. And that we set the public hearing date for April 16th, 2024.
Very good. And a second?
Second.
So a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Static for approval of this resolution and setting the public hearing date for April 16th, 2024. Any discussion on that motion? With that, voting is open. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed on that, and that motion passes unanimously as well. That moves us into action item number 17, Finance Report.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Register.
I move that accounts payable in the amount of $3,730,305.88 represented by check numbers 176,383 through 176,685 and payroll for the amount of $642,341.32 represented by check numbers 39331 through 39337 and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Register and a second from Counselor Static for acceptance of the finance report. All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes. And that moves us into our update reports. And first we have Planning and Zoning Director Robin Collins and an update on the comprehensive plan update and then also housing development. Appreciate Counselor Register had some questions in regards to the number of approvals, things of that nature. So this is kind of to touch on that as well. So, Director Collins.
Mayor and Councilor, council members, I cannot get it out tonight. Morgan, the Deputy Director, is going to give the update for the comprehensive plan. She's been managing that project.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, Morgan Bisau, Planning and Zoning. As mentioned, I will be presenting the update on the comprehensive plan update process that we have been going through. As you can see on the slide in front of you, we are about on track. This project began in the fall of 2023. We are now at the very tail end of our foundation and vision and substantially through phase 2 trends and opportunities. As such, we have created a public participation plan. We have done a plan audit of all the other master plans that the city has, such as the airport plan, the downtown master plan, parks and pathways, transportation, et cetera, to see how they fit in with our comprehensive plan. We have begun our existing conditions analysis and completed our vision outreach to the public through a few different facets that I'll get into in a minute. We have also drafted our vision document, which was emailed to everyone yesterday evening. So hopefully you had a chance to at least open that and look at it a little bit. One change from this originally adopted timeline was that council requested the vision and map come forth a little sooner. You can see that the final plan is not anticipated to be adopted until spring of 2025. Based on council's request, we have really done heavy public involvement on the front end with the visioning and created and are in the process of creating our draft future land use map and have mostly completed our vision document. We hope to have both of those back in front of you along with our existing conditions analysis and some interim criteria in the next 2 months. As we promised this fall, we wanted to bring forward that map sooner and our decision-making criteria, so as the council sees comprehensive plan amendment applications in the next year, you have something to compare them to say, you know, what does the map look like that we're moving toward? How do we know if this is in compliance with the direction we are moving versus just comparing it to a comp plan that we know will be outdated in another year? So if the council likes the direction of the vision document that was provided to you, and I'm presenting on a little bit tonight, then we can go back to our consultants and make sure that we bring that forward for acceptance and approval of the council with that map and existing conditions analysis and some criteria in the next 2 months. You can also see with this timeline that we have our next anticipated major outreach to the public this summer with some opportunities and choices analysis and getting their feedback, and then a final push in the fall, winter to make sure before we adopt the final plan and finalized map that the public has buy-in. So as I mentioned, we've done extensive public participation to date. This began in November of 23. We formed a comprehensive plan committee that was made up of representatives from schools, county, planning and zoning commission, the council, college, utility companies, transportation agencies, developers, et cetera. And they have met 3 times since November. The public participation started with the development of a project website, and an online questionnaire, as well as an interactive mapping exercise and the ability to sign up for event notifications and one-on-one interviews. We had approximately 20 people, I believe, sign up for one-on-one interviews with the consultants. Following that, we also had an in-person visioning events over 3 days in February. This included a variety of different components, such as a city tour with the consultants, on-site visits with individuals that reach out, special interest groups that had specific interests that they wanted to explore more in depth. We had a pop-up event at Lincoln Elementary School, trying to be where people are, going to them instead of expecting everyone to come to us, especially parents who are very busy. So we wanted to make sure that we were trying to meet people halfway. So we did some pop-ups at Lincoln Elementary School. We had some really great participation with the Caldwell School District. I would say it went really well, and we're really grateful to the participation and help that they lent us. We had pop-up events at White Dog, Flying M. We had great local business owner support, and we're so grateful for them letting us use their facilities to meet people where they were already at. And like I said, 3-day visioning open to the public at the Train Museum, in-person steering committee there at the train depot, and pop-ups down on the plaza on a Saturday with ice skating, just trying to, once again, go where the people are if they're not coming to us. Here's a little image from our visioning hub at the train depot. We were really excited by the number of people that came down to participate. It was pretty continually busy for the whole 3 days that we were there, and we were open for like 6 hours every single day of those 3 days. This was on one portion of the room where we had posters going through all of the themes that will be in the visioning document, and I'll get in those in just a second. And then in the other portion of the train depot museum, we had sort of a workstation where we had an on-site sketch artist who would provide sketches to illustrate the comments and visions from the public. So if we had people from the public saying, this particular area of town could really benefit from a community garden, he could draw that up and show it to people. So as they came through, they're like, what would that look like? Here's an example of what that would look like. So it was a really interactive experience and great to be able to visualize the public's comments. So what did we hear so far to date? In the questionnaire that we asked, we said, what are some of the defining features of your favorite urban place? And some of the top answers were pedestrian-friendly, sidewalk-safe streets. 58% of the public, or the people responding, said public gathering places such as parks, plazas, and open space. Small and local businesses, that was number 3 for what we were hearing. Tree-lined streets, natural features, lakes, rivers, streams, geological formations. So you can tell that this really is circling around the idea of pedestrian connectivity, vibrant outdoor spaces. We then asked if there should be less, about the same, or more of certain amenities or options or features in the city, to get a sense of what things we should be looking for more of, and maybe like what doesn't need to be encouraged as much. The number 1 response that we got was more restaurants and retail. Coming in close behind was more public parks, trails, and open space, and then finally more entertainment venues. As you can see, the categories of high-density mixed use, dance halls, and nightclubs, the public response was very split, very even between more, less, and stay the same. So it was really focusing on commercial retail and outdoor space of what people wanted more of. Continuing with the same type of questioning and asking if there should be more, less, or the same. I guess I kind of summarized that one. More retail, specialty stores, and boutiques in particular. We also heard that a significant portion of the public wants more breweries, wineries, distilleries, sort of like that tie-in with, the viticulture that we have going on in the county. And 53% felt that we had the right amount of business parks already, but 65% felt like we had enough medical and dental facilities, which I know is something that I've heard the council express before. And 44% felt like we had an appropriate number of apartment buildings. So what do you love about Caldwell? When people were asked what they loved about Caldwell, definitely the downtown and small town feel and charm of Caldwell was ranked the highest, along with the community and people in it. So really it's the defining feature is we like our neighbors, our friends, the spaces that we've created, sort of like that history and charm. When looking at the biggest challenges, responses were downtown parking, growth, traffic, and infrastructure. I think things we've all heard in here before as well. So what are the total numbers? We had 137 responses to the first online questionnaire. So it's 137 unique people responding. That resulted in a total of, close to 1,900 total responses, because a lot of people didn't answer every single question. So some people picked and choose, which one they wanted to answer in that questionnaire. Some spent, extensive amount of times on the map. We had an interactive map and just putting lots and lots of dots all over the map of things that they thought should be here versus there. So not every participant submitted the same number of responses. Some had a lot of responses and some had fewer. As I mentioned earlier, we had 20 community one-on-one individual discussion sessions, where consultants got to talk to someone for, half an hour at a time and really dig in deep with some of the issues that, those residents felt like we were experiencing. During the 3-day Vision Hub, we had 405 Vision Hub attendees, 53 attendees at pop-up events, 4 on-site business visits, over 200 handouts distributed door-to-door to different businesses, encouraging people to come participate, which resulted in many, many worksheets and comments. We had 192 people visit the virtual workshop that took place online after the train depot. So if people weren't able to come down in person, we were also handing out cards to everyone, letting them know they could do the same event online. And we had 192 people opt to do that online rather than in person. So this is a total outreach of over 1,000 unique people reached during this Participation 1 series. So we're really pleased with the numbers that we got. From this, what we were hoping to do was create a vision statement, something to sort of focus that vision document around that I sent out, and from that to create the themes that we're going to focus on throughout. So this would be based on the attributes that will be necessary to accomplish this overall vision and to help develop strategies and goals. The consultant started with an initial vision statement, which is that one there at the top. It's a little bit wordier than the one that we ended up with. We did get a lot of feedback that it was maybe a mouthful. So you can see that it went through several iterations as the public commented on it, as the steering committee commented on it, to get to this final vision statement of Caldwell honors its heritage and embraces its future through thoughtful growth, a mixture of housing, accessible community connections, and distinct spaces. From that, we broke it out into themes. So these themes are what the community felt was necessary to achieve that vision statement. And we did the same exercise where we looked at like an original theme, goal statement, and worked through several iterations based on the public feedback, steering committee feedback, et cetera, to get to this final redefined theme and topic. So the first one was for a connected community, and the vision statement for this ended up being Caldwell has an efficient network of accessible corridors linking neighborhoods, centers, downtown, and the region with ease. Inviting gateways and connections with multiple transportation options and diverse land uses contributes to Caldwell's unique grid network and places. So this is like our aspirational statement. That's where we want to go. The next theme that we had broken out was a community of vibrant gathering spaces, and this vision statement for that theme ended up being Caldwell is a diverse community anchored by its downtown and grounded in its agricultural roots. This historic small town charm is showcased in quality street design and safe, welcoming gathering spaces. The next theme based on that original vision was where parks, rivers, and agriculture meet. Meaning that Caldwell is a community connected to its natural features like the Boise River and Indian Creek through accessible greenways, inclusive outdoor amenities, parks, and urban agriculture. The next theme of quality neighborhoods to call home, which is defined by the vision of Caldwell neighborhoods being designed with quality of life in mind. They accommodate housing variety for all stages of life, connected to the community, and provide amenities for a healthy lifestyle. And lastly, it was important to the community that Caldwell has intentional and distinct activity centers, not just the downtown. So the statement created for this with the public feedback was Caldwell's thriving downtown and other distinct centers create a vibrant lifestyle that is grounded in locality. These diverse and intentional centers support emerging economic opportunities that serve the community. So along with developing the vision statements and themes that we just went through, the consultants asked what types of transition strategies between different housing types the public felt would encourage and maintain those quality neighborhoods. Because that's a comment that we often get in here is, we're trying to transition between different types of residential uses. What should that look like? What does the public want that to look like? And in order of public response, we got balconies and terraces are okay as long as fencing is being provided between the housing types, or that apartment buildings could potentially be taller, even 3 stories or 45 feet high next to single family if the buffer between these uses contained additional landscaping and shrub every 100 lineal feet with a mature height of 20 feet. Or third, if they have greater setbacks and potential step backs of the building. So you can see that in some of these drawings, the fencing, the landscaping, step backs and buffers. Then the next was what features would help transition between sort of our commercial centers and other areas. And so we talked about features like sidewalks with pedestrian amenities, neighborhood retail, mixed-use buildings, step backs of building facades as they get higher, architectural materials and colors that blend in with the surrounding environment, and denser landscaping as attributes the community desires. There was actually quite a significant number of people from the public that said that they do want sort of a mix of uses and not just isolated residential and commercial, that they wanted to have their neighborhood shops, provided that we were doing some of these transitioning elements. So all of this public participation helped develop the draft vision document that was provided to you to review, and would be coming forward in the next 2 months with that draft map to see how those two go together with some draft approval criteria to help guide any future land use applications that come before this body over the period of the next year. In addition, we would also be bringing forward our existing conditions analysis, which is almost ready. So we're hoping to have all 3 of those things in front of you before summer really kicks off, so later this spring, and also the beginnings of our opportunity and choices. So I guess part of my being here tonight is just to give you an update on the process, but also to see what your thoughts are on that vision document, if you think we're going in the right direction, if you like how it's coming together, and if so, we will bring that vision document back with the map to show you how they work together very shortly for you guys to review and accept, and to hopefully use as an interim draft for comparison and analysis as you have other comp plan amendment applications over the period of the next year until it's adopted, formally adopted.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor.
Just a comment. I think the retailing part of this is just out of the question. I think, what attracts people here is it's family oriented. We have some fairly good restaurants, so we need to keep that, and entertainment. Those are the 3 major points, and I don't think we can ever compete with any other area as far as Bon Marchés or J.C. Penney's or Shields or Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, anything. I don't think that we don't have a snowball chance in hell of competing with that. Now retail, flower shops, jewelry shops, something like that, I agree with, but clothing stores and things like that, I don't even think we'd have a chance at all to.
Focusing on the smaller business, more individually
and I'd like
owned
to
shop.
see more restaurants too, more like, Napa has a Thai Express restaurant over there. It's just excellent. I've been trying to talk those folks into moving over here too, but anyway, just a variety of restaurants, and I think we need to concentrate on that. Good entertainment, the family gathering at the Indian Plaza and other places, but retail I think is just minuscule.
I think that's all great feedback that I'm happy to pass forward to the consultant.
Yeah, okay. And I had a question for Rob. Do I still need to get together with you folks on comprehensive plan? Because I thought, I met with you a couple months after you were hired, and I thought we had covered all that, but do I still need to talk to this other consultant yet, or?
Yes, Mayor and Councilor Stanek, if there are council members that haven't scheduled a one-on-one interview with a consultant, I would encourage you to do that.
Okay.
That's just a more personal conversation that you can get more in-depth in what your concerns are or what you'd like to see for the community.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Yes, Councilor Allgood?
Couple of questions, Morgan. I noticed, when people were listing what they wanted more of and what they wanted less of, one of the things they wanted less of was apartments. In your interviews and contacts with people, what was the thought on affordable housing and more housing? Did people address that and give you thoughts on that?
I would say there was a wide range of responses. I know I talked to several people who were very concerned about not wanting to sprawl too far out, not wanting to take up good agricultural lands with sprawling low-density residential development. And I heard several people say, if the trade-off for that was having denser infill projects, we could put more people in town to preserve agriculture, that they would be very into that. So denser doesn't have to mean apartments necessarily. I know that this said that there was 44% of respondents who felt that we had the appropriate number of apartments. I suppose that means there's still 56% that feel like we don't have the appropriate number of apartments. But I don't necessarily think that density automatically means more apartment units. And I would say that the responses that we heard were definitely varied, but I was surprised by how many people spoke about being okay with higher density developments where you could have access to more commercial amenities, mixed use, small retail within walking distance, restaurants within walking distance. I definitely got the sense that people liked this idea of a more mixed use, medium to high density development.
Yeah, I was just, cost of housing, finding a place to live, finding a place for your kids to live kind of situation. I was just curious what people's thoughts were on that, because it's almost impossible at the minute,
It is. There was a lot of comments about the cost of housing having gone up significantly. I think in our vision statement on neighborhoods, it sort of addresses that, where it says we hope to have a variety of housing for all ages of life, right? So that could mean a variety of things, from townhomes from our starting family to more accessible units for retired individuals. So I think the plan was kind of hoping to address that by having a variety of housing styles that could accommodate people at any stage of their life.
And one last thing, this handout that we have.
Yes. So that will be for Robin's presentation that is taking place immediately after mine.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for Morgan? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Robin, vote to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A little bit while back, I think I gave a presentation, or maybe it was just an email with some updates on active housing developments and how many units are still out there that are under construction or need to be built. So this is just kind of a follow-up to that. We've dug a little deeper into what developments are actually still actively building versus ones that haven't started building yet. And how many houses within those developments have been built already. So hopefully this will give you a little bit more information to go on. Just a little background to help you understand as we go through the presentation. What we're being told is that standard large-scale housing developments, they're usually in the planning stages for about 2 to 5 years before they even submit for subdivision platting or anything. Affordable housing development projects are usually a little longer, 4 to 7 years in those planning stages. Those are ones that are actually seeking subsidized, like HUD funding or low-income housing tax credits. Those usually take a lot longer, in the planning stages before they come to us for, going through the entitlement process. From approving like a subdivision plan, from the time we approve a plat to when they actually start building vertical foundations, is about 2 to 3 years. Because we do require them to go out and do a lot of the infrastructure ahead of time. So before they even start building those foundations, that's what we're seeing on average, is about 2 years. After that, each phase of construction is anywhere from 18 months to upwards of 2 years per phase. So as an example, we had a subdivision that was approved in 2007. It had 12 phases, and it's just now completing in 2023. It took them 16 years to do 12 phases, and that is from the time they submit their plats to the time they're built out. So when we start talking about older active housing development projects in the city, active meaning that the development approvals are still valid, their plats are not expired, so they still have ongoing entitlements. We have a few of those that are still out there. The approval dates were from 2007 to 2019 is when the original plat approvals took place. So I broke it down by housing units. As you can see, single family, duplex, triplex, and then multifamily. Multifamily is anything with 7 units or more in a single building, so your typical apartments. You can see on the left side of the table is total units. On the right side is the units that have been built so far. So the total units is 1,743. Out of that, 624 have been built. The next line down, we show units with a potential of not getting built. That's about 449. The reason we say those are a potential to not getting built is because those are developments that have requested extension after extension after extension, and they still haven't started any construction. So the likelihood of them moving forward is probably not real high. So we're kind of thinking we might have about 449 units that don't move forward. So total individual dwelling units that are remaining that could still be built is estimated at about 670. And again, these are from subdivisions that were approved between 2007 and 2019. So now we'll go to the current times, 2020 to year to date. We have had a little over almost 6,000 single-family homes approved. We've had, and when we look at total units, like for duplex, these are actual units. So that's not 362 duplex buildings, that's 362 units. So take half of that is the number of buildings. Triplex units, 12. We've had 738, 4, 5, and 6 plexes. Multifamily, we've had 4,200. That does include 2 of our large low-income housing projects. So we have total units, 11,141. Out of that, only 1,266 have been built. So you potentially have 9,875 units that could still be built in the future.
Robin,
Yeah.
when you say units, is that doors?
That is doors, yes. That is doors. So the percentage, 52.32% is single family, 47.68 is other, so that is duplex and up. So again, this is the potential non-builds. Out of those, I broke them down a little bit for you. We have about 322 single-family homes that we estimate may not get built. 52, I believe those are all fourplexes, and a development that has 49 apartments that we foresee may not get built, for a total of 423. And this again is from the ones that we just talked about, 2020 through 2024. So the total entitled units from the previous slide, 9,875. If we minus that 423, we're still looking at about 9,452 that are somewhere in the process, whether it's construction drawings or they're out there doing, they already had construction drawings approved and they're out there building infrastructure, or their plats are still valid. So there's still a potential for those 9,452 dwelling units or doors.
Robin?
Yep.
And Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Just to give us some perspective of this, we always talk about the Charles because it's one of the largest. Do you know how many doors? I know that's probably not a fair question, but when we say there's 9,000 out there,
Robin, would you go back one slide? I wanna take a picture of that.
I can send this out to you guys too, if you
that'd be
want
good.
this.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that
Um,
would, yeah, that would
Let
be-
me
that'd
just
save-
pull up my spreadsheet here, 'cause we did a spreadsheet for all of these, so with all the dwelling units per development. So the Charles had approved 230 single-family homes and 1,028 apartment units. But they had a lot of commercial with it as well. It was almost like a master plan community.
right, but that's still 10%, over 10%.
It is. They had,
Number here.
it is. They
That's
had the largest amount of apartments out of all the developments, and there's about 78 developments, and they had the largest. I think the next largest down was like, let's look. The next largest down for apartments was 504, and that's actually Prospector Point, which is the low-income housing project.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So as we start talking about projected housing build-outs, I think it's important to understand that the majority of these developments have 5 to 7 or more phases. With some of them, like Chickasaw that was approved not too long ago, they have 16 phases. So we went back and looked at historical timelines of other phase developments. So the likelihood of those 9,000 plus units, we will not see all of them. If they were to build all of them, we probably won't see them before 2034 at the earliest, all the way to maybe 2050. Because some of those, like Chickasaw, you're probably looking at about 20 years, maybe even upwards of 30 years for them to get through construction drawings, all the infrastructure improvements, and then 16 phases of development. That could be a 30-year project. So I will stand for questions. That's my update.
Mr. Mayor? So Robin, the 9,452, that includes the, going back to what, 2016 you said? Is that when you started, or?
So the 9,452 is just from the 2020 to year-to-date.
Oh, okay.
And then you had another 670 that were prior to 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Question, Robin, on this?
Yes.
Which I like, all of these are numbered. Is there somewhere I can go to see what the number means?
Yes, I can get that to you. I had it. Mapping gave me a table, but their table is not correct based on the dwelling units that were actually approved. So I need to go back and adjust that, and then I can get that to you if you like that, so that you know what the dwelling units are for each development.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just a website that I could go to look at or whatever, just whatever, so when I'm looking at this map, I can see what I'm looking at.
Sure, absolutely. And just to explain the map a little bit, so everything in blue has an approved preliminary plat. So what that means is they may or may not have submitted their construction drawings yet, but they definitely don't have a final plat, so they don't have any building permits to build yet. So everything in blue is still forthcoming, or could be forthcoming. Everything in pink is a pending preliminary plat. So they haven't been through their final preliminary plat process yet. They've been through city council, but the preliminary plat is not finalized yet because they don't have, again, construction drawings and all that kind of stuff. The only ones that have been finally through the process and are pulling building permits are the ones that are in green, and maybe a few of the blue, but not all. I think when I counted it up, out of 78 developments, there were 61 of them that have not started building yet. And that makes up pretty much that 9,000 units.
So one more quick question.
Sure.
Based on what is approved today, we're talking 2034 to 2050. So as we continue to hear developments come in over the next year or whatever, we're just pushing that timeline further and further out.
Mayor and Commissioner Allgood, absolutely. I mean, the only ones that you can really say would happen soon is the ones that are coming in and they're being built in a single phase, maybe two phase. Those will usually get built within 3 years, maybe 4 years. But a lot of these that are coming in, I went back and looked today at some of the ones that were recently approved. They had a minimum of 7 phases. And those are going to happen over a long period of time. You're talking probably 8 to 10 years for them to get to that, and that's pretty fast, actually. So, like I said, it's a good about 2.5 years before they even start putting foundations in the ground from the time they're approved.
Yes, Councilor Register.
Question, what was the percentage again of that have not been built?
It's 52.32% single family and 47.68% other, and that other is duplexes and up.
Okay. Because I just think, I mean, this is just sort of a comment as far as the building. If we're looking at, Counselor Static, added it up for me. So 10,422 doors, which is roughly over 31,000 people in the next however many years, according to the numbers we have. The concern that I have the most, and this is again just a statement, not really a question, but if 52% of those homes and 47% of the duplexes and up aren't built, we can't really visualize what that looks like in the city. And my concern is that, especially like on USIC, we keep approving and approving and approving these apartment buildings, and and we just don't know what it's going to look like because none of them are there yet. And that's where I have the biggest concern as far as continuing to build when we already have a potential 31,000 people coming in. And as we found out earlier in the meeting, we have 2 ambulances. So I just think we need to keep up with that, and I think we need to visualize what this is going to look like when it's all done, if we keep doing what we're doing right now. So that was just my little statement.
Very good, thank you, Councilor Static.
Mr. Mayor, Robin, were there any child care centers included in any of this at all? Do you know?
I'm trying to remember if the Charles had something like that. I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
It's minuscule if it is any, right?
Yeah, I would say it's minuscule. I mean, I know that, and when I give you the spreadsheet, I can tell you the developments that are also mixed use, so that you know which one has a commercial component to it.
Okay.
I would really like to see a map like this of where the multifamily units are going, if that's possible at all.
Okay. Yeah, we can break that down. I know that they had put like the purple is multifamily, but that's not actually correct, so don't look at that.
Well, I just think it would be, since we can't really drive around and see it, I just think it would be interesting to see how much it takes up, especially with what we're doing on USTIC.
So, Mayor and Council Register, let me ask, when you say map of multifamily, do you want anything that's duplex and up? Are you just mostly concerned with apartments?
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of, I don't know, that's a hard question, because I know there's some, we just recently approved one on USTIC that was single, or mixed use, right? Single family plus duplexes, maybe fourplexes. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the congestion.
Okay.
Basically, so.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just to see the, kind of the hot spots.
Yeah, so I think the table that I was saying that we can get for you all, I think that'll help you, because in the table we can say this development that's showing number 5 was approved for this many single family, this many duplexes, this many triplexes, and upwards.
I just want to be able to visualize it.
Sure.
Because I think I've heard from this council before with developments that we want to spread them out and put apartments here and put apartments over here and whatever, but USTIC is actually becoming like apartment row, and I think we need to see that on map. That's all.
Sure.
Other questions?
Not a question, but I really appreciate this. This is wonderful information. It helps a lot.
You're very welcome. I just want to say publicly thank you to my staff that helped us with this. Thank you to Mapping that helped us with this. Unfortunately, our software system that we currently have does not track this, so we had to manually look up every single building permit and every single case file to get the data.
Are you gonna get new software?
I am hoping that we will, but I will say that this little project took us about,
Might be in the
I
budget.
think
Yeah.
you should have it.
this little project took us about 60-some hours of staff time to get the data.
Yeah.
So
think-
I really appreciate engineering for helping us out, and my staff, they were absolutely fantastic.
Well, for us, it is very valuable, it's good information.
Yeah.
And I think it's ridiculous that nobody was keeping track of it before you came along, so thank you for putting that together. We should have done that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. Okay, so real quick on the next one, the Parks and Recreation Director, so Julie is out of town, not able to be with us. She did include a written report in regards to the pickleballs courts, in case you do get, phone calls or emails. There are some issues that have come up. They're gonna have to close the courts, but if you read in that letter, they're not gonna close them all, they're gonna close 2 at a time so that the contractor can come in and fix those. I believe that's under contract, or under warranty, I mean, so it won't cost the city anything. They're gonna come in and fix some of the bubbling that's occurring, but they will keep the courts open. They'll just do 2 at a time, so.
Mr. Mayor, was that because you, played the first game of pickleball on the court before it was ready?
Because I was on fire, that it just heated up the court so much that it bubbled up, so, no, I don't get any credit for it, or I guess I can still get the blame, but, just that there was some issue with the adhesion, it appeared between those two, but nothing to do with my skills or lack of skills regarding pickleball. So, but that's in your packet for you to read on that, and again, want to thank Planning and Zoning for their update reports. I think those are great. If you have, like I said, I know, Councilor Register reached out about having that housing development update. So if you have other items you'd like to be presented, talked about, please let me know and we'll make sure we get those for those update reports. So with that, we'll go into council comments, council reports. Councilor Register.
I don't have anything. It's
Okay,
late.
very good. Councilor Static?
Just a couple items. First of all, I want to reiterate again how important some of these other facilities are, like, Mrs. Dugan's, operation there. And, here this past week, we had a VFW meeting at the, Vet Memorial Hall. And we actually had a gentleman, I think he was in his late 40s, early 50s, come in, who was going to commit suicide in the hall. And thank goodness we had some experienced people in there, talked him out of it. And the reason he was going to is because of his daughter was killed in Iraq here not too long ago. But anyway, and this happens quite often. And again, when we come to budgeting time this year, I just want to emphasize that, these folks need more money to operate, and the good they do is just tremendous. And I think, we need to really take a serious look at that. Second item I had is, I still have a question about the pathway on Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
Is the council gonna vote on that in the future, or has that been approved by previous council, or how does that work?
So I know it's been around for a long time, and so I'm not sure if it has already been approved, the funding for it.
So just like any project, it would still, like, it hasn't gone to RFP, the contractor hasn't been selected. So once we have a contract, it would still come to council for
Okay.
approval. So, even though it's been approved in the action plan that you guys approved for CDBG, it still would come to council.
Oh, great, okay, thank you, appreciate it, that's all I have.
Yeah. Councilor Doty?
I have a few things. First, the economic summit was good, and I would strongly encourage us next year to have all the council go that so chooses, just to put more of an emphasis on it than them just putting it out there. It certainly will change your perception of what you believe and what the true facts are, not only in Idaho or Canyon County, but around the world as well. So it's not too long, it's only half a day, and it's very informative, and, again, can lay some of those perceptions to rest, that aren't exactly true all the time. On, Councilor Stoddick's note, the 3,000 for the VA, I mentioned it last council meeting, but now I brought it back again, why people had some time to think about it. That's for the storage container. And then we'll work, you're still a representative for the VA, correct? And maybe instead of me, but just having Chuck work with Rob to figure out where on city property that may go. There's many things accessible to the VA, and they do not have a place to store any of it. As we all know, they're kind of on the corner there, and there's just no room to store any of the products that would help our veterans. And so as I'm guessing, I'm looking for an affirmative that to use the 3,000 of the 17 that we have remaining in our budget to give to them to purchase that, so. All right. And then the lighting in the parking areas, I just wanna be sure with the meters coming in, that we don't lose sight of that. I mean, I think we need to light up those, even though it might meet the standards of wherever those standards come from. I think we need to place an emphasis on getting those lit up brightly. It just makes people, and it does make them more safe, but it also makes you feel more secure, that we shouldn't have any shadows lurking out there if we're gonna push people into these, parking areas, so to speak. So I think we need to really jump on that and not wait till it's done and then go, yeah, we should add lighting. We should be moving on that quickly. And then I've talked with our engineer already, but I'm certainly looking forward to the list. It sounds like they've got someone hired to know a list of where our sidewalks need to go and our streets that need repaired, not just the ones that we get grants for or that urban renewal pays for. If necessary, go outside. I know Caldwell Housing Authority's helped with sidewalks. I think we need to get a list. I think we need to commit to providing some money just for that, or the streets has money for that, but an emphasis should go on the sidewalks, especially from schools. We have schools still that don't have adequate sidewalks or need replaced or need sidewalks in general away from them, and we haven't really put an emphasis on that. So rather than the city taking it all upon themselves, I think sometimes it might be worth spending money. Usually Caldwell Housing's a little cheaper, but sometimes you may have to spend a little more, or these things are never gonna get done. As we know, our city street departments are usually low on staff. There's these huge projects with the influx of people moving in. So sidewalks, as we heard, are pretty low priority. So if we can place an emphasis on that, but maybe it doesn't have to be city officials building those sidewalks. And same with our streets that need repair as well. And for that, I'll be quiet for a minute.
Very good. Counselor Williams.
Mayor, thank you. Just one thing, I think we all got an email from John McGee mentioning the Genesis Community Health. They moved into that new, their new facility is in the old Veterans Administrative Building, and I think the contribution they're making to the community of Caldwell is noteworthy, but beyond that, Mr. McGee's participation on this council over the years, I think warrants us at least answering the question if we want to take out of our community outreach budget, I don't know, $500, $1,000 to contribute to the Genesis Community Health, and whether we can decide that tonight or whether we need to push that off till the next meeting, I don't know, but I don't want to ignore that email. If there's a consensus, great, either way, but let's at least answer that email, and I don't know if anybody else had that in mind, but any other thoughts on that, or you want to think about it for a couple weeks?
I think, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I think it's a good subject to bring up. He did write the email, and we owe him a response to that. So I'd like to
Exactly.
know what people want to do.
Yeah.
There's no need to make this an action item or anything, right?
Yeah,
We can
no.
just deal with this.
So yeah, maybe good. I mean, you could tonight, or kind of like what you just talked about before, right? We talked about it last week. Everybody had a chance to think about it. We come back, and so it could be something maybe on the second, April
Okay.
2nd, to make a final kind of
No, thank
agreement
you.
among
That's it.
council. Counselor Allgood.
Legislature is winding down. Hopefully this will be the last meeting that I double duty. Nothing, local government, which drives me crazy, but, nothing terrible I've seen so far. I have not seen anything out of an urban renewal bill yet. I mean, they're holding it to the last minute.
Literally, so,
So anyway, that is it.
very good. Counselor Dittenber. Okay, and me neither, so we'll go ahead and wrap up before it gets any later, but appreciate everybody being here. So with that, I stand for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
In a second. All those in favor? Motion passes.